McEvelyn. Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Township Union Planning Board to order. Sunshine notice, please.
Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law, notice of this meeting stating the time and place was satisfied by the filing of an annual notice with the local source and Star Ledger, newspapers of general circulation within the Township of Union, and posted on the bulletin board of the Township of Union Municipal Building.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Here.
Mr. Cohan?
Here.
Ms. Espinoza? She's excused. Mr. Frayne? Here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Ms. Perkins?
Here.
Mayor Bowser?
Here.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Here.
Ms. Khan?
Here.
Ms. Kalid? Chairman Lay.
Here. First on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the May 22nd meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Miller. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Frayne. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frayne?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay.
Yes. Forgot. Can we swear in our engineer, please?
Mr. Nave, can you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the resolution regarding the municipal lot redevelopment. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Khan. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frayne?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Abstain, not present.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay.
Yes. The other resolution that we have was for application 2025-06, 1331 Stuyvesant Avenue. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Miller. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frayne?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay.
Yes. All right, so under new business, first we have application 2024-09, which is a continuance of 811 Chestnut Street. May the representative please step forward.
Good evening, Natasha
Good evening.
Montalvo on behalf of the applicant, Michael Perguca. As we were previously here at the May meeting and we had our traffic expert go ahead and show the site plan and I know there was issues with the traffic light plan, so we did revise it. We do have our traffic engineer here today to go through the revised plan. We also have our architect and our planner to wrap up this application. Again, we are here for 811 Chestnut Street. We are subdividing the existing lot into 4 proposed lots and constructing 3 two-family homes on 3 of the lots, and 1 of the lots is going to be the road and the shared parking for all 3 homes. If there are no other further questions, preliminary questions, we can go ahead and start with the traffic.
So just to confirm, you are going to call how many witnesses tonight?
3.
3. The traffic engineer, the engineer, and the architect.
No, traffic engineer, architect, and planner.
Architect and planner.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So-
Our engineer has a conflict for tonight and is currently in Newark.
Okay.
So
Would anyone be taking questions on his behalf?
we can try to take as many comments as we can regarding, I guess, our traffic engineer can address as much as he can, but if there's going to be specific questions that we cannot address, we would need, I guess, to come back at the next hearing to have his testimony.
Got it. Okay. All right. Who is the first witness we would like to call?
We have our traffic engineer, Craig Pereguli. Sorry.
Sir, can you spell your last name for the record?
Sure, it's Craig Perigloy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
Ms. Paraguay, will you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So if everybody recalls, at the last meeting, I described how the traffic signal would operate and how we tie in as that fourth leg of the traffic signal opposite Fairway. There was some question as to, you know, when we actually laid out the traffic signal, would it impact any of the lots, which I think was a fair question, and also how would it affect the turn lane upstream along Chestnut Street. So what we did was go back and actually lay out the traffic signal plan and how it's going to look and operate. And I have it on the screen now. Let me zoom in to where I think one of the board members had a concern. You have 2 lanes going northbound on Chestnut Street, and then it opens up to 3, and that third lane is sort of a storage lane for the left turn lane at the next signal. And there was some concern, would we be eating into that? And I'm happy to report that no, we're not actually. With just a slight shift of the striping in the southbound direction, we're able to fit that left turn lane for this property without really changing anything else. So essentially, the way that signal operates now, it's going to be exactly the same unless a car is trying to make a left out of our driveway, then they'll get a few seconds of green time and then back to the way it was. So what I testified to still holds true, but we've now verified it with this layout. And I think, you know, those were two good points that were brought up by your engineer, and I forgot which board member was asking about that turn lane, but we are able to verify that we can make that fit. And I think that was really my homework from the last meeting in terms of the traffic signal plan. I think the site plan was changed to address some county comments, nothing substantial, nothing really different, just some minimal things. We do actually now have county approval for the plan. They'll obviously have to review the traffic signal plan in coordination with the township, but that's something, those finer details as to how the wiring goes and all that, and the signal plan comes later on in the process. But putting together this layout, I think for all the reasons we talked about at the last meeting, made sense, and I'm glad it was able to work pretty successfully. I'm not sure if there are any other questions beyond that, but
I have no further questions.
that was my marching orders. Sure.
All right, we'll go to questions from the board. Mr. Frayne, you want to kick off?
So, sir, I'm going to call that going east, away from the cannon? Were you putting the left lane in?
Sure, yeah, we'll call it, yeah.
Okay.
It's southeast.
So, southeast is fine. So how many lanes do I see there going? Are there 3 lanes now?
Yes, there's the two lanes that exist today.
Okay.
Are staying basically as they are.
Okay.
And then instead of that median being there, that median will get shortened and we'll have a left turn lane. So this way, when somebody's waiting to make a left into our project,
Okay.
which will be very few and
Right.
far between, but when it happens, they won't be blocking traffic, they won't
Okay.
create any issues whatsoever. So
And that-
everything will operate
And that'll
as
be
it
a
does.
left turn lane
Left
only,
turn
no
lane only.
U-turn?
No U-turn.
Okay. And then so we're going to go northwest, going towards the cannon.
Okay?
Is 0 reduction on those 3 traffic lanes?
Exactly right.
Zero reduction.
Yep, if you see this right here, this dash line is where the striping is today. And this hatch, that striping is there today that we're removing. The double yellow line matches that perfectly, so there's not 1 inch is taken away from that lane,
And
the
that-
west, going
Okay.
west.
And are you removing the cement divider?
Yeah, in that section, that'll be removed, and it'll be pulled back to before that turn lane starts. And you can see right here, that little bull nose. So this is where the divider is today, where it's
Right.
dashed.
So you're
So
going,
we'll get rid of that.
but not on the northwest side?
Correct.
Not, still be
Still
there?
there.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You asked me last time
Yes,
about
sir.
that.
Yes,
yeah.
I did,
I
yes.
remember.
So just as a follow-up to that, that diagram does indicate, could you enlarge it again?
Sure. The turn lane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are taking out a portion of the new lane that's created for the left turn at West Chestnut Street on the other side, under the bridge.
No, we're not.
Well, it appears that you are, because you've got the dark,
This is the lane right here. This is the same lane. See, there's 3 lanes. This is the lane that goes.
but there's actually, what are the dark stripes, diagonal stripes to the left of the last gray stripe?
Yes, those are the same ones that are there. These 2 stay. The rest of these lighter gray ones are removed.
So that's existing striping?
Yep, we meet the existing striping along this side, somewhere right in here.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, I was listening, but I didn't hear you say that the adjustment to the traffic signal, will it be a 4-way signal now?
Yes, 4-way
So
signal.
it will control left turn lanes out of the property to Chestnut Street South?
Yes, if you come out of the property and stop at this stop bar, it'll call the signal and say somebody's waiting there. Now, if you make the right turn on red, it'll cancel that, so it'll never give it green. Only if you sit there long enough, then it'll know you want to make a left or go through, then it'll give a few seconds of green, whatever the minimum we can get away with, because the most you're going to have is one, every once in a while, maybe a second car, so it doesn't need that much green. And we don't want to take away from the busier
Right.
traffic.
Sir, does DOT have a minimum amount of seconds that the light has to be green?
DOT for turn lanes, it's 5 seconds, it's 7 seconds for through movements. This is kind of an odd situation. So if this was a DOT road, they might want it 7 seconds. It's not. It's up to Township Union and Union County.
Okay.
So we could go to, I think 5 seconds would be the most that you would want.
All right, thank you.
I have one, just a question for clarity. You used the word stop bar. Will there be a stop bar?
Yes. There'll be a stop. This right here is the stop bar for coming out. And then you see this dash line, that's the area of detection. So that's the little camera that sees the vehicles when they get there. That's where it'll be aimed to see a car. And we'll have it so it's called a non-locking situation, meaning when a car calls that phase, when the signal gets around to it, it's going to give it green. But if that car goes away, it'll cancel it. Because you can make a right turn out of here on red and not ever have to get a green. So we want it to give green as little time as possible, because it's such a small development, it's really not necessary. It just happens to be because of where it is, this is the only way we can get access to it.
Sir, who pays for that, the county or your?
No, I'm sure my client would love it if the county would pay for it, but no, we're paying for it.
Your client, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? You're stuck with me. I have some questions. And I know you've presented the plan, but I think it's also important to establish the nature of the intersection in the current state that it is in. So when we're talking about Chestnut Street, it is a county road. It's designated as a county road. It's also known as County Route 619, right?
Right.
Okay. So are you also aware and agree with me that that road is also deemed as a minor arterial functional classification by DOT?
Yeah, I believe it is, yeah. And it looks like it's 627.
And according to NJDOT, minor arterials are defined by DOT as highways aimed to interconnect with and augment the principal arterial highway system, correct?
That sounds correct. I don't have it memorized, but yes, that's,
And so some of the principal arterial systems that we can reference to that may involve County Route 619 would be things such as the Parkway, Route 22,
on either side. So,
yeah, Morris Avenue, Route 82. Those are principal arteries, arterials that have in some ways connection to that county road and that intersection, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Would you also agree with NJDOT that in urban areas, minor arterial highways, quote, serve trips of moderate length at a somewhat lower level of travel mobility, end quote?
Yes, I'm a traffic engineer. We're not allowed to disagree with NJDOT, so yes.
Good. And so would you also agree with them, in accordance with the roadway design manual, that regarding minor arterials, access to abutting property should be minimized to facilitate traffic flow and safety?
Yes, they have an entire statewide access code that the goal is to limit the number of driveways, yes.
Got it. So based on the plans that you're presenting today, can you say that the construction of a private road connecting to County Route 619, as we set a minor arterial, thereby creating a four-way intersection on Fairway and Chestnut, would increase access to an abutting property to a minor arterial.
It would add one driveway for 6 homes rather than 6 driveways for single-family homes. So yes, this would be, if this were a state highway, DOT would much prefer this than what you have down the rest of that road.
But it would ultimately increase an access point to,
You know what? The intersection exists today, so we're just adding a 4th leg to the intersection. So it really doesn't even add technically a new access point because Fairway Drive is already the access point there. So, in terms of semantics, but DOT's goal is to minimize the number of driveways. We obviously have to take access here. There's no other way to access this property other than this location. So it really fits into what DOT's goals are, to one driveway for multiple residences rather than a whole bunch of driveways for,
but is
those
what
houses.
is in place now a road or a driveway?
it's really a driveway. I mean, I guess it could technically be considered a private road, but I don't think it's going to have necessarily a name. It's a driveway to access
And what's
these
the
units.
current width of that driveway?
24 feet.
24 feet.
But
And
interior, it widens out at the intersection,
yeah,
of course.
and so as you're building out the road that would officially make it a four-way intersection, what's the width of that private road that you're introducing based on this site plan?
It's 24 feet, interior to the site. With the curb radii, the curb line opening, probably on the order of 50 feet. I don't see it dimensioned here, but
Oh, okay. I see what you're pointing to. So you have the 12 plus 12 and the curb opening, right?
right. So where it's defined as a drive aisle or road, it's 24 feet wide, but you need curb radii so to make turns, vehicles be able to turn in and out of there. So it's wider at the point where it intersects the curb line at Chestnut.
How many conflict points does the current intersection have?
Well, it's a 3-leg intersection, so this would make it a 4-leg intersection. You mean conflict points in terms of,
So a conflict point is basically a point in which two or more road users, whether vehicles or pedestrians, may interact with one another. So,
right, so in this case, you have the left turn into Fairway and then coming out of Fairway, so that's 2, and then we add 2 more on the opposite side.
does that calculation also take into account pedestrians?
Yes, pedestrians are, this signal is designed with pedestrian
Wait, so can you clarify again
signage.
how
You see
many,
the P1 and P2 are the pedestrian crossing signs.
how many conflict points are at the intersection currently?
Vehicular conflict points?
Conflict points meaning basically any point in which any road user, whether vehicular or pedestrian, may interact with one another.
Vehicular or pedestrian?
Yes?
Well, you have the left turns. So 1, 2, and then, I don't know if there's any pedestrian, there's no pedestrian crossing on this side. So the pedestrians are only on the driveway side, which makes sense because you want it on the lower volume side. So there's 2 now, and there'll be, I guess, 5 if you count the pedestrians. But all signalized. These are signalized conflict points, so the
Okay.
pedestrians, they'll get the walk sign
Yeah.
when Chestnut has its green.
I'll have more questions on the signaling part as well. So with this being a county road and with this intersection potentially now having 3 lanes on one side, 3 lanes going on the other side, and I want to also confirm the current flows of traffic that would traverse that intersection. So number one, would you agree with me that one source of traffic would come from the residential area coming from Fairway Drive?
Sure. I just drove through that intersection myself, so yeah.
So did I, yeah. In addition to that, would you also agree that another source of traffic coming from Fairway Drive would not only be from the residential neighborhood, but it will also be drivers taking the exit off of Route 22 East, making the exit into Fairway Drive?
Sure.
Yeah.
Same as today. None of that's different.
Yeah. I'm just simply establishing the record in terms of trying to understand the current nature of how the intersection works. Now, if by any chance that driver from East 22 does not go into the residential neighborhood, essentially they really have nowhere else to go but hit that intersection of Chestnut and Fairway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And for that driver as well, if they would like to get onto Parkway South, they would take that route of Fairway Drive, hit the intersection, and make a right onto Chestnut. And then as they're driving down, there would be basically an entry point to Parkway South, correct?
Right. It's just beyond, yes, just beyond
Yeah.
the same section.
And would you say that for a driver on East 22 that wants to make it to Parkway South, that's probably the shortest and or fastest way to get to Parkway South?
I would imagine so. I'll take your word for it. You probably drive it more than I do, but yes.
Additionally, would you also agree with me that if, let's say, a driver from 22 would want to access Parkway North, that they basically can take that same route, just drive down Chestnut a little bit more and make a right onto Parkway North?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Obviously, because this is currently a three-way intersection, would you agree that another source of traffic would come from cars traveling, I think it's southbound, so on the diagram here, it's basically they're coming from the left to the right, and basically all those cars coming from that direction, right? So if you're going from left to right from the plan that you're presenting us.
Yes, towards
Yeah.
the parkway.
Yeah,
Yes.
towards the parkway.
From 22 towards the parkway.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we covered all the traffic that are coming from Fairway, now we're covering all the traffic that's coming from the left of the screen here. So there are several sources of traffic that would feed into that minor arterial, right? And so, for example, would you be aware that one of those sources would be West Chestnut Street, for example? It's probably not on the map here.
No, I just thought it would
Yeah.
be easier since we're talking a little
Yeah.
bit to zoom out. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all these traffic patterns that you're describing exist
Mm-hmm.
regardless, either way.
And another example would be Elmwood Avenue going into Stuyvesant, which Stuyvesant then merges into Chestnut. Right?
Yes.
Would you? Okay. And then additionally to that, there would also be traffic coming from Stuyvesant in the direction from the town center, Union Center.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So when we think about Elmwood Avenue and when we think about West Chestnut Street, I do believe that DOT also have them classified as major collectors, correct?
Probably. I haven't looked up their classification, but that would make sense.
And would you agree with the township's master plan's definition of major collectors as collectors gather traffic from local roads and connect them to arterial networks? Major collectors are discerned from minor collectors by factors such as higher annual average traffic counts.
Yes.
Regarding West Chestnut Street, which I cited, I do believe there are only two other arterial networks that they connect to, that it connects to, Chestnut Street and Route 22 West. Would you agree with that?
I'd say that with Fairway?
So West Chestnut Street, right?
Right.
One of the major collectors. We established that it feeds onto Chestnut Street as one of the minor arterials. The other arterial system would be Route 22 West.
Right.
If they go the opposite direction, they'll eventually hit
Route
Route
22,
22 West. For Elmwood Avenue, the other major collector, they would connect to obviously eventually Chestnut Street, one of the minor arterials, but they would also connect on the opposite direction, Morris Avenue.
Yes.
Eventually, if you just drive
I
all the way
follow.
down.
You keep going, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we established that source of traffic. Would you agree that another source of traffic would come from those who take Parkway exit 138B, which would essentially have them travel down onto Chestnut Street in that direction northbound towards the intersection of Fairway and Chestnut?
Yes. Sometimes I come that way too, so, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Now, obviously, as just to state for the obvious record, another source of traffic would come from folks who want to access 22 East, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And obviously, one way would be if, depending on where you are on Chestnut at the intersection, you would take Fairway, and from Fairway, you can get on to 22 East, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Do you know of any other minor or principal arterials that would allow a driver to get onto 22 East?
From where?
In Union.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, I mean, and there's other
I think
intersecting roadways.
Yeah, I
North
think
Michigan
one-
Avenue connects to 22, there's a few.
Michigan. Remind me where
It goes
Michigan.
down to, it goes into Kenilworth.
Quite a bit
That's
down.
that's a pretty busy road that connects to 22. And then there's other,
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're private roads that lead to the developments.
Oh. Got it. And then other examples might be like from Morris Avenue, for example, and Vauxhall Road or something like that, right?
Yeah.
To connect to Route 22. And beyond that, would there be any other minor arterials that would allow a driver to get onto 22?
In Union
In
itself?
just Union
I
itself.
mean, off the top of my head, I can't
Yeah.
think of anything, but it's possible.
So
I mean, there's
three
a lot
or
of
four-
roads that intersect Route 22.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 minor or principal arterials that allow a driver to get onto 22. If there are only 3 or 4 minor arterials, I think it would be safe to assume that a fair share of commuters or drivers who want to access East 22 would utilize Fairway and Chestnut to get on to 22 East,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Considerable amount. Okay. Would you agree that another source of traffic would come from those who want to access West 22?
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, just to establish the record. So, would you agree, basically, one example is that a driver could go up northbound, hit the intersection, go through the intersection of Chestnut and Fairway, hit then another intersection, I do believe it is West Chestnut and Stuyvesant and Chestnut, that three-way intersection after Chestnut and Fairway.
With the little island.
And then they get onto West Chestnut and get onto 22 West, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I do believe there's another,
yes.
yeah, I do believe there's another way too, if you can confirm that they'll hit that intersection, but then stay straight on Stuyvesant, hit the intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana, make a right on Wawana, and they could also access 22 West, correct?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to, drive this in my head. I should
Now-
pull up Google Maps if we're going to keep
Yeah.
going.
Now I just thrown 2 intersections in front of you very quickly. So the first intersection that I was referencing to is that first intersection that will be hit after you cross Fairway and Chestnut, which is West Chestnut, Chestnut, and Stuyvesant. Would you, on the top of your head, know how far away that intersection is from the intersection of Fairway and Chestnut? Would it be? Yeah.
You mean that the signal that we were talking about before, just off the page here to the left?
Yes, that immediate intersection on the left on your screen.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, and between 500 and 1,000 feet, I'd say. It's not, this lane, this lane going to the left of the page drops into that left turn lane for the signal farther down.
And then the other intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana is not that farther away, too, from that intersection, correct?
If you go left or if you keep going up towards
Yeah,
the
if you keep
the
on
little
going
island,
towards Union Center.
towards Chaffee's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how
And
many
then that
feet?
splits. There's a left turn there and a through. So these 3 lanes all go off on their own just to the west.
Yeah, so the intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana, that's pretty close to the intersection that we just talked about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
probably equally spaced between Fairway, the signal, and then that intersection, they're probably about equally spaced.
So you would say from the intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana, from the intersection of Chestnut and Fairway, again, around 500 to 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I mean, just ballparking, just trying to, like I said, I just drove through it, so I'm just trying to kind of ballpark it, but yeah.
Okay. Would you also agree with me that another source of traffic would come from those who would want to drop off and pick up their children from Connecticut Farm School? Are you familiar with Connecticut Farm School in
No,
the area?
but I'll take your word that that's obviously another source of traffic. There's There's a lot of traffic that goes through the intersection, and they're going all different places, I
Okay.
understand.
Yeah, just to say for the record, that's a school that's right smack dab on the intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So, I know you're not aware about the school itself, and I mean, would you agree with me that then a school like that would generate pedestrian traffic and vehicular traffic?
Sure.
Okay. One thing that I notice also on the property as it stands, that, can you confirm, since you traveled through there today, that there is a guide rail installed abutting the property, extending all the way to the overpass, is that what it's called? The overpass for Route 22?
Yeah, I don't know how the extent of it, but yeah, there's a guide rail in that area, yeah.
And then I do believe, if you can confirm for the record, that there are also guide rails also installed between Buchanan and Globe as you are traveling northbound to the intersection, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I just, not to be obvious here, but guide rails are essentially there to ensure that drivers are not going to veer off and, hit homes or hit sensitive structures, correct?
Yes, so you put a guide rail to essentially guide a errant vehicle back onto the road such that they don't hit an obstruction that they can't avoid if they lose control. So it depends on the distance to the obstruction, whether a guide rail is put in or not.
Right. And so, I mean, it would be fair to say that installing a guide rail in itself is a very thoughtful decision with regards to having engineering judgment in terms of deeming it necessary to have a guide rail.
Yes, there's very specific guide rail criteria. It's a book about this thick of where you can and can't put guide rail.
So, overall, based on the current nature of the intersection, would you agree that it is an intersection, a Fairway and Chestnut, that is heavily utilized, that is complex, that serves as an important artery to 22, the Parkway, Union Center, Five Points, Connecticut Farm Schools, other local hubs, and it also has several guide rails in it? Would you say that it's pretty a complicated intersection to begin with?
I don't know if I'd say complicated, but it's certainly a busy and important intersection, which was what drove our design to make sure that what we're doing doesn't have any impact on all that traffic we just discussed.
Okay. All right. Thank you for presenting the plan, and now I'm going to go a little bit more into what you propose for the traffic plan here. With regards to redesigning the proposed intersection, and as well as providing a new traffic signaling system, was a capacity analysis conducted?
Not at this time, not yet, because we generate such a tiny bit of traffic, but we're going to want to make sure that this signal, I'm sure at one point it was coordinated with the next signal. Those things fall out of sync, so that's going to be something that I'm sure the county is going to require, if not that you're going to require, that we look at that to make sure they match up. But what we're doing here, your job is to make sure that we're not going to impact that, and this is such a small amount of traffic and designed to not impact any of those through movements that this particular project wouldn't have an impact. So by doing this and improving the signal, you're going to get it re-synced up and re-timed properly based on what's out there now. So that's another benefit to this happening.
But a capacity analysis has not been conducted yet.
No.
And wouldn't DOT want a capacity analysis done to ensure that that becomes an important consideration when you're redesigning intersections and putting new traffic signaling systems in?
Well, we don't need to, this has no involvement with DOT, but at this stage, not necessarily. This would just be reviewed geometrically at this point. The capacity analysis and optimizing the signal timing all comes farther down the road in the design.
But eventually, wouldn't this be approved by DOT?
No. DOT has no jurisdiction here.
Well, Mr. Paraguay, didn't you say on our last meeting, and I pulled it from the minutes here, at some point Union County had enough of dealing with traffic signals and pushed it to the municipalities and the DOT?
Yes. So county roads.
So now the DOT shouldn't be involved?
No, not at this one. This is not on a has nothing, there's no state highway here. So Union County's going to look at this, but they're going to defer a lot of the review to Union. They don't want to own the traffic signals.
Sir, I'm confused. So when you said that dealing with traffic signals and push it to the municipalities and the DOT, now you're saying that the DOT really shouldn't really care about it.
No, not this intersection, no, DOT doesn't care about this one. But there's thousands of traffic signals in Union County. Some of them have to do with DOT.
I'm also confused as well because because I know that this would have to go through the county, and the county has their own land development standards. And they say that subject to that an installation of a traffic signal that affects a county road is, quote, subject to the policy and procedure of the New Jersey Department of Transportation Bureau of Traffic Engineers for authorization to design, install, and operate. So can you clarify on where's this discrepancy where the county is saying that DOT needs to be involved? Your last testimony says that DOT needs to be involved, but now you are saying that DOT doesn't need to be involved.
First, I never said that DOT needs to be involved at this traffic signal. And that language, DOT's traffic signal design criteria have been adopted by several counties, municipalities, probably even unions as refer to the DOT design. That's what that means. NJDOT will not take one look at this.
Even though that the county land development standards say that DOT has to authorize the design and installation of operation of a new traffic signaling?
Yeah, that's not the case. Maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, DOT had to issue a letter authorizing you to design a traffic signal, but they got rid of that. I would say 2003, 2004, that went away. So DOT does not have any involvement with local or county signals.
Are you also aware that counties create, adopt, and amend transportation master plans?
Yes,
Are you aware of Union County's master plan for transportation?
I'm sure I've looked at it before. Not in the context of something so minor like this, but yes.
I do believe, citing from the county master plan, that the North Jersey Regional Transportation Model forecasts Chestnut Street as one of the top 5 largest projected increases in daily truck volume in the county by 2040. So my question is, would that have an effect on the capacity of the intersection of Fairway and Chestnut?
Yeah, sure.
How would a fully actuated signaling system deal with that?
The same way that this is a fully actuated signal and it will continue to be. It responds to the volume of traffic. There's the little cameras up there on the mast arms read if it needs to give you the left turn arrow or not. That wouldn't change. But like I said, because we're touching this signal now, we're going to optimize it and bring it up to current standards. The last time somebody did anything here, who knows when that was, so it'll get a little bit better.
Okay. So I think we've established here that there is significant, there potentially could be significant pedestrian traffic with the school nearby. How would phasings for pedestrians be managed at that intersection of what you proposed here?
Yeah, the only pedestrian crossing would be across our driveway. So they would have the walk signal as long as Chestnut is green, the through movements, when there's no conflicts.
There's no crosswalk across Chestnut Street to get to Fairway Drive?
Doesn't look like it, no.
There is a sidewalk along Fairway Drive.
There is on this side, yeah, I see it. No, there's no crosswalk.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no pedestrian signals either. This signal pole is existing. There's no pedestrian buttons or anything.
So are you saying there's no pedestrian signaling, there's no ability to initiate a pedestrian call on the intersection at all?
Not to cross Chestnut, no.
Not to cross Chestnut?
Right. The only pedestrian crossing would be crossing the proposed driveway.
But I would think that would be an issue for the local police department and traffic control as opposed to egress from the applicant's property.
Right, yeah. There's a reason, which when this was designed, that they didn't put pedestrian crossing across Chestnut, so it would remain to not be there. That would have a pretty big impact on traffic, because that's a long crossing, so you'd have to have a fairly long walk and flashing don't walk for that. I would think that's probably part of the reason why. And I don't know if there's that much, there probably isn't that much pedestrian demand across that.
So let's say if you are a family from the Fairway Drive area, that means there would not necessarily be any a safe route, essentially, for them to walk from that neighborhood to Connecticut Farm School. Can you cite any path whatsoever that would be a safe way for them to walk from the Fairway Drive neighborhood to the school?
No, I wouldn't have looked at that. That has nothing to do with this project. Whatever it is today is the same.
Exactly.
There's no, we're not changing the pedestrian patterns here, so they're staying the same. The only difference is when you're walking on the sidewalk on the north side of Chestnut Street, now you walk across a driveway to 6 units, that's it.
My next question pertains to signal coordination. And you have here a fully actuated signaling system here. And according to the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they say that traffic signals, quote, traffic signals within a half mile of one another along a major route in a network of intersecting major routes should be coordinated with interconnected controller units. So we established the first intersection of Fairway and Chestnut, and the second intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana. Now, when we are thinking about other intersections that are a half-mile distance from the intersection, are you aware of any others?
A half mile from this,
From the intersection of Chestnut and Fairway?
not that I can think of, that next signal off the left of the page here is the closest one. That would be the most critical to coordinate with.
The two other ones, right? Basically, the two that I just mentioned, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, whatever, there's a coordination pattern there now that, like I said, is probably fallen out of date and out of sync that will get retimed. The signal will get retimed, those offsets will get optimized because we're changing the signal.
So you wouldn't be aware that there would be other intersections such as West Chestnut and Caldwell that's within a half mile. You wouldn't be aware that there's another signaled intersection of Morris and Stuyvesant that's within a half mile. You wouldn't be aware of another signaled intersection of Parkview and Chestnut that's within a half mile.
If they're all coordinated? No, I don't know.
That they exist.
If they are, they'll be optimized.
Well, what do you mean by optimize?
The idea is you want to get it so the main direction, when it turns green, they get greens through all of them, so you keep that progression of traffic flow. And we do that. There's software that does that and optimizes the offsets of those intersections. That was done whenever the last signal in this system was touched. But over the years, traffic volumes change. A lot of times, like you said, they want them interconnected. They just do it with a stopwatch and the timing gets off. So whenever we come in and touch a new signal, we would have to coordinate that. And if this is a corridor that's highly coordinated, there's ways now you don't have to wire them together. There's radio signals that'll keep them tied together. So all that stuff would be looked at and might happen only if we do this project. If not, it's going to stay the way it is.
But currently, right now, the plan does not call for signal coordination. Based on what ITE recommends, basically a network of intersecting major routes should be coordinated with interconnected controller units.
Well, we haven't developed the signal timing plan yet, but like I said, we have to do that capacity analysis and look at that coordination when we go into the nitty-gritty design of that.
And is that the intention
It
to
doesn't mean
conduct?
anything physical necessarily, it's just the timing. It's in the controller box that's there, you change the timing.
And is that the intention to do that coordination with all the 5 intersections that I stated?
If they are now, then yes, whatever the county or whoever put the signal system in coordinated, we would update that coordination, no question. I don't know if those specific intersections are all part of it.
Mm-hmm. Now, one difficulty of coordination, if there's obviously any kind of human factor into this, and we talked about how Connecticut Farm School is located on the intersection of Stuyvesant and Wawana, right? From my recollection, and we have a school board member here, that there's a crossing guard on Stuyvesant and Wawana. Obviously, there is no way a fully actuated signaling system could coordinate with a crossing guard.
No.
No.
No, so for that 15 minutes a day, maybe it gets out of whack, but the idea of the coordination is for the major through movement.
Right. Now,
Lots of things can change it. Parallel parking, there's a lot of factors, but you do the best that you possibly can.
now, would you say like the drop-offs in the morning would basically coincide with morning commuter traffic as well, right?
Yeah, it's in that morning rush hour time,
yeah.
yeah.
So there is potential for significant traffic to accumulate in that intersection. And so what is the remedy if a fully actuated signaling cannot coordinate with Stuyvesant and Awana with all this traffic, but as well with no ability to coordinate? Could
Well,
that result in...
If this project doesn't get approved, then there will be no change in the coordination. If this does, then that'll all be looked at. That's my point. Because we're touching the signal, and like I said, what we're doing is not really impacting all that traffic coming from all those directions, still gonna be the same. But now we're gonna be required by the county, and I'm sure by the township, to give that all a fresh look and make sure that we optimize the signal timing, optimize those offsets. So that's a side benefit that I hadn't even thought of this project. That and the fact that any development on this property has to do this. There's no other way to get in or out of this property. Here we're talking about 6 units, so it's you couldn't think of a smaller thing. I mean, we could put a quick check there that would really impact this intersection and generate a lot more traffic. So this is actually perfect. It's
Well,
a
that's
chance,
not
that developer spending a lot of money
point of
to fix
information?
this signal.
That's not
for
part of
very
the
small
approved zoning
development.
designation for that area. It's an RB zone, so.
Sure, but it's a signalized access. They'd come in for a use variance if they could, I mean, this is really a developer spending a lot of money to upgrade a signal for a very minimal impact to that signal. And the fringe benefit is it's all going to get a fresh look and get its timing updated and so on and so forth.
Okay. Now, I want to go to some of the details that you have with regards to redesigning the intersection. And I know Mr. Frayne and Mr. Cohan and Mrs. Perkins touched a little bit of this. When you introduce that left turn only lane on Chestnut into the private road, you are removing essentially a painted island and a curbed island to make space for that 10 feet wide left turn only lane, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And I would assume that there would be a considerable purpose of why islands are there in the first place. Like, would you agree that islands are there to help, separate the potential of conflicts or to control the conflicts of the angle of conflicts of cars turning from left and right and things of that nature?
Not necessarily. Usually the islands you put a divided island to keep side streets and driveways from being able to make lefts in and out.
Sorry, can you clarify that a little bit? Just
If I want to put a driveway on Chestnut Street down the road, and there's an island there, my driveway has to be right turn in, right turn out only. So that's a bigger impact of the island.
Okay.
A car, I mean, it's a little concrete island. It's not stopping a car from hopping over it and going to the other side.
So, very interesting. Would you agree with the NJUT roadway design manual that also states that islands are there for the separation of conflicts and to control the angle of conflict? That's why I asked my question.
Sure.
Yeah. And would you agree that it could also be used for traffic calming and speed moderating purposes, regulation of traffic, an indication of proper use of the intersection, protection of turning and crossing of vehicles?
Yeah, those are the things that I mentioned when I said about a driveway down the road.
Now, are you aware that by doing this, you are also displacing a do not block intersection sign and a no left U-turn sign at that curbed island?
Yes.
Where would the signs be relocated?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to look at that. It could either be up on the mast arm, the no U-turn sign, or it could just be farther back where the island still exists. It would be up to the county and the town's preference on how critical that is.
Okay.
Stephen, can I ask a question?
Sure.
With regard to the left turn, so today you can't make that a left-hand turn, right? So what was there previously, you couldn't make
No,
that
you could-
turn?
you
You had to
could.
go all the way around?
The left into our site?
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, the
You-
site's
right,
not
you can't.
developed, but
So,
there's a
right, but
way to
before-
get there.
But
You can
before it
make a left.
was, and you couldn't make that turn, so anybody who needed to go to that space had to go all the way around. So my question is it necessary to have that left-hand turn?
I don't know, well, I believe your police department asked for it, but I don't know that there's anything restricting somebody making that left, but the difference is they're going to be yielding to the oncoming traffic and blocking traffic on Chestnut, whereas we're making it so they're out of the way. Is there a sign there?
Yeah,
I'm trying to picture it. but-
yeah. So it's not possible. You're saying that you said the police are requiring you to put that there?
They asked for the turn lane, yes.
Can I just?
And rightfully so.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? According to the police report that we received, it says additionally, the intersection should be reconfigured to allow left turns in both directions on Chestnut Street.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we went and put the left turn signal, left lane turn, sorry.
Also, just one confirmation, would the guide rails abutting the applicant's property be displaced as well as a result of this plan?
They'd be reevaluated because we're regrading the property and changing it. Some of those guide rails might be there because of a critical slope, where, meaning like a car couldn't recover off of the slope. As we change that, it may change the need for the guide rail. Like I said, there's an evaluation that is very specific. You establish a clear zone, there's obstructions, critical slopes, and there's a length of need. It's overly complicated, believe me.
And I do believe that there are two school crossing signs abutting the applicant's property. Are those being displaced as well?
They'd be replaced if they're in the driveway location.
No, it's not on the driveway location.
Oh,
it's,
then no, they would stay.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Are there any other questions from board members?
I have one.
Yes.
Sir, the new left turn lane slope, how does that work timing? Is that based on a legal form of bar?
Yep. Yes, so when a vehicle's detected here, this left turn gets the green arrow and pretty much all the time, right? It's a pretty busy left turn. So if there's a car here, they'll also get the green at the same time for just a few seconds, and then the through traffic will go.
Sir, I hate to keep you there too much longer.
No, that's
A
fine.
practical question, and I assume that you and the developers have already thought through this, but if a family wanted to walk their children to Connecticut Farm School, because that would be the closest elementary school, would there be a safe way for them to do that, walking out of this driveway and crossing
From this
over?
development,
Yeah,
I'd have to look at what's
yeah. I
upstream.
mean, as I think of it, it dawned on me that, these are big enough for families and children
Well,
may. need
You
to
said
get-
there's a crossing guard there, they're crossing Chestnut?
When they get up to Connecticut Farms to get
Okay.
into the building, yes. But from this place, and we've said that there's no crosswalk to get across to the sidewalk, how do they get how does the family get safely walking, children, it's not that far, to school, that school? It's worth thinking about. I don't
Yeah.
expect you to have the answer now, but, as you
trying
plan,
to
as this
picture
has been
what you mean
planned,
crosswalk.
that's a practical thought.
I mean, there are several homes on this side of,
Yeah.
There's an
Chestnut, too, so
unobstructed
how would they
sidewalk
do it?
from this property all the way up to the corner of Lewana.
Okay. And how do they get over to that sidewalk?
They don't need
Is
to
it
get
on
over
that side?
Chestnut
It's
Street.
on the same side.
Thank you. That's my clarity for me. Appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
oh, yeah.
And I also just want to note, since we resubmitted these plans prior to this hearing, we have gotten an updated fire report and updated comments from Colliers, and we have addressed all their concerns. So I just want to address that as well.
The school is on the same side of the road as, oh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so they wouldn't need to cross, they just walk up the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I've driven by that so many times and I never looked over and saw
Yeah.
there was a school there.
Actually, I had one more question with regards to, I think you said county approval on the plan. When you mean county, who? Who from the county?
Engineering department.
We have received from the county planning department, we got the county approval already. County approval came in June 18th.
June 18th? Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
planning, yeah. Which is the stage we're at now. When it gets to that nitty-gritty design, that's when the engineering department will
Right, okay.
dig in.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, questions from the public?
You can come over here so he can stay by the mic.
Tempestuous. This is just business, strictly business. Okay, I actually live in the Fairway Drive section. My
Mr.
name is
Weisbrod?
David Weisbrod.
Just, yeah,
Been there a long time. What else do you need to know? The address?
name and address.
My name is David Weisbrod. I'm called a lot of things, but I'll answer to Dave. My address is 990 Tin Kettle Turn in Union in the Fairway Drive section. And at the risk of sounding tempestuous, it's completely about capacity. And to palpably ignore what goes on capacity-wise at that intersection is foolhardy. For example, when people come off Fairway Drive, that left turn backs up and completely would block then the left turn into your driveway. Not to mention,
I'm sorry, is there a question? 'Cause this is
the question is, yeah, I don't know how that would then be addressed. The question is, how can you ignore the capacity of the traffic? Because the traffic is miserable, especially when the school's let out. So if you're not planning to do a traffic study,
Let him answer the question. Yeah,
Sure.
sorry.
We're not ignoring that, we're making sure that what we're putting here doesn't change the capacity.
but you said you
All
weren't,
that- Whatever is happening now will continue to happen if this project doesn't come in. If this project comes in, because we're modifying the signal, we'll get a chance to make it a little bit better.
with all due respect, modifying the signal does not actually correct the situation if you've actually lived it for 45 years. So,
I'm not suggesting we're going to correct everything.
well, I understand that, but it would actually correct nothing. No, it's okay. We got a moment here. We're having a moment. Okay, I'll ask it in the form of a question.
Just like the game of Jeopardy.
There you go.
There we
Well,
go.
then you answer the
Okay.
Do I have
question.
to answer in the form of a question? 'Cause
So my question
In your case, no.
is this: if this rearranging of the timing doesn't solve the problem and it only exacerbates the problem, how would we then go about alleviating the problem in the future?
Well, it won't solve all the problems, I can promise you that. But it's not going to exacerbate it. That's what I'm saying. What we're doing is, none of our vehicles are going to be blocking that through traffic or creating any issues here, but we are going to optimize the signal timing for today's current traffic volumes.
Based upon,
Is it going to fix all the problems? No, but.
based
it's
upon
something-
based upon a capacity study.
Yes, oh yes, absolutely. We're going to have to do that to figure out how the signal needs to be timed.
Okay,
We're going
so-
to get 24-hour.
So it would not be unreasonable then to request a little bit of a delay while a capacity study was completed?
No.
Huh?
because
Okay,
this
it's a
is-
question. It
this-
was a question.
This applicant is going to invest several $100,000s into upgrading this intersection. And there's design that goes into it that costs a lot of money too. And if this board isn't going to approve his project, why would he waste that money?
Understood. Okay. At the moment, I have no questions.
Welcome back.
Hi, thank you. Nadej Ricketts, 692 Rosner Drive. I also live in the Fairway area and just need to clarify some questions. I have some clarification questions for you. For example, did you say that you'll be removing that median that's currently there?
Only for this little stretch for this left turn lane.
Okay, were you aware that that is the median that people do use coming out of Fairway as a crosswalk to get across? Were you aware of that? Because I think you did testify that said that there was no crosswalk there.
Yeah, there's no crosswalk there.
Okay.
I mean, people may walk across there, but there's no crosswalk or pedestrian signals.
Okay, so do you agree by removing that median, now you completely remove any form of access from people coming out of Fairway to get across, especially those families who have children coming out of Fairway? Do you agree by removing that median, you're taking away that safe space for them to try to get across?
Well, on this side, but on the other side, the median stays. And that left turn lane is going to be so infrequently occupied, it'll be a safe space too.
Again, the question, I don't think I heard your answer. That median that you are taking away, that little island, like I said, that was a safe space for families that's coming out of the Fairway area to go across, to walk their kids to Connecticut Farms or whatever the case is. Do you agree by removing that medium, you are taking away the safe space for pedestrians to cross?
I don't believe that median was designed to be a safe space for pedestrian to cross, and if it's being used that way, then it's unsafe, so that makes this even a better plan, because it's removing people from doing something unsafe. That is a very narrow median. It's not meant to be a pedestrian.
It's not that
refuge.
narrow. It's actually not that narrow. Okay. Next question. You also testified several times that this project is such a small project, so therefore, why go through the process of adding the lights?
Because of where the property is. There's no other place we could put our driveway. We thought about trying to put the driveway outside of this signal, and the county and the township said, no way, this is the only way we can do it.
Is there a
Believe me,
way?
my client would rather not have to go through the expense of upgrading the signal, but it's the only way that this property could be developed.
Would the residents in that property just be able to follow the same, let's say, traffic pattern? If they're leaving this particular property, they're just making a right onto Chestnut Street and going wherever, was that in a question or maybe a thought as opposed to going through this entire process, how about the residents there follow the same traffic pattern? Was that something that was considered?
We considered every possible option to not have to do the signal. It's expensive.
Okay, then.
There isn't one.
Then why didn't that option of them following the same, like, traffic pattern that's already there, why wasn't that chosen as opposed to doing the traffic signal?
Because the county and the township told us this is the only way to do it.
Also address that, sorry. The applicant has been working with the township for a long time on these plans before prior to coming to the board, and we have considered all options. It's just we were going based off of the recommendations from the township engineer, how to make it work most efficiently.
Now, do you agree that adding this light will now add additional commute time and traffic for, let's say, the hundreds of commuters that travel on this road just to have a traffic light for 20 to maybe 30 some odd people that's not using it quite often? Do you
No.
agree that that's going to add more commute time, especially during peak hours?
Infinitesimally, barely at all. Only if somebody wants to make a left in or a left out, will it take just a few seconds away from the overall signal, and then it'll be back to normal operation. It's only 6 units. The peak hour traffic, the most coming out in the morning is 2 trips. So once every half an hour, you're going to lose a few seconds.
Was a
It
traffic
won't be noticeable.
was a traffic study done with the current flow of traffic in that area right now?
Yeah, that's what we were just discussing. That's how we're going to develop the timing and optimize it, by doing that traffic signal, getting 24-hour traffic volume data, because you need the signal is timed differently at different times of day, and we need to know where those breakdowns are to make sure we optimize it.
Right, but a capacity study wasn't done yet, correct?
No.
Okay, so going back to where you're saying you're going to make that lane a turning lane. The traffic that's coming off of Stuyvesant Avenue going onto Chestnut, those are already 2 lanes that's there, right? And now will those lanes now be narrow just to add that 3rd lane there?
Yeah, the rightmost curb lane will be 1.5 foot narrower, yes. It's extra wide now.
I have a lot of questions. I'm just trying to go through so I'm not repetitive. All right, I'm done with my questions. I have more statements towards the end when it's public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Would you like to call your next witness?
Yes.
Okay.
I will be calling our architect, Chris Juchnick.
Sir, can you spell your last name for the record?
It's Juchnik, Christopher.
Sir, would you raise your right hand? And do you swear the testimony about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you please provide your credentials to the board so you can become an expert?
I graduated from Pratt Institute with a Bachelor of Architecture in 1988. I became a registered architect in the state of New Jersey and New York in 1994. And my license is covered in both states. And I've appeared between many boards. not in Union a little bit, but have been in many, many, many times.
Thank you. Does the board accept him as a?
Board stipulates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you take us through the floor plans, please?
Yep, so you should have B1, which is up on the screen right now, which shows our typical ground floor plan, typical meaning that it's the same for, it's 3 houses, three two-family houses, that's how we get to 6 units, not 6 houses, but 3 two-family homes. On the ground floor, we have a double garage off to the right in this particular plan. Next to that, we have a rec room, a study, a summer kitchen, a laundry area, and a bath and a utility area. Then we have the staircase that brings you up from this ground level directly up to the second floor level through the staircase that's here. It is directly interconnected. There are no other entrances on that ground floor from the outside other than the garage doors themselves. As you come up the stairs from either the ground floor or you come up the stairs from the outside, the exterior, you have a wide landing upstairs, allowing you to enter into the one door that brings you into the second floor apartment, or you go to the left and get into a staircase that brings you up to that third floor apartment. We have the entrances separated on the outside of the building so that we do not have to sprinkler the building. I think there were some comments earlier that came from one of the departments, I'm not sure which one it is, but if you have your entrances outside on the exterior, the IRC 2021 New Jersey edition does not require a sprinkler system in the building as long as all the fire ratings are maintained throughout the building, which if this is built, we of course would do that. And this is very typical of many, many, many homes that we design and are constructed. Once you get upstairs, again, either from downstairs or you come up the stairs into the main unit, you have an open living room, dining room combination. Then you have 3 bedrooms off to the side. You have a common bath, then outside the other bedrooms, and then we have the master bedroom suite up in the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner. We also are, well, I'll go to the second floor plan on this. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a deck shown coming off of that off of the same second floor level. On our next sheet, which is B2, we have the typical third floor plan, which again is typical. We're calling it typical for all 3 homes. And again, it's the same mirror image of the plans downstairs where we have the living, dining room, kitchen. We are also suggesting a deck, proposing a deck on the rear. Then we have our 3 bedrooms along with a master bedroom suite off to the right again. Then we have our front elevation. We did kind of drive around the neighborhood off to the side. There's that little development there. It's a mixed bag of different types of designs, a couple different time frames. We actually designed for the owner of this property their house off to the side. It's like a gray blue house there, the siding. That's the same kind of siding we would propose for this building where we do have the siding, which are your horizontal lines here. That would be sort of a hardy plank board as a very nice architectural feature. Then the rest of the front would be brick, along with some accents on this little projected window here, which is like a larger bay that comes out, gives the building a little bit of a 3D effect. Coming around the side, it's just going to be hardy plank siding with the bottom level would be just plaster over the block. The block would be up to the second level, and the rest of it will be frame. You can see the profile of the decks that we're proposing on the rear on this, and then here we can see the actual decks themselves, and then that's pretty much it. As I mentioned, we're very cognizant. We do a lot of drawings in a lot of more urban areas in here, and I know one of the biggest concerns is having direct connectivity between the ground floor. We usually call it the owner's unit, which is the ground floor, and that second floor unit, so there's direct connectivity and no other access other than from inside the unit to try to dissuade people from trying to make illegal apartments.
Thank you.
And that's basically the building.
Can you please describe how we're complying with the energy conservation ordinance?
Yes, so we are required a federal mandated program, which is called the Res Check. We have to run the numbers on these. Basically nowadays, it has to be 2x6 construction on the outside walls, which allows us to put a certain amount of insulation inside of it. And then we also usually have to put insulation around the outside. The attics are insulated about twice as much as normal houses are. These that used to be insulated, how they used to be insulated, excuse me. And also we'll be using LED lighting throughout. So all of the materials are compliant. And once you pass that res check, the building is pretty energy compliant.
And we have no problem complying with Collier's report or any other
Nope.
comments the fire department has or
We
anything?
should be fine with all of that.
Perfect. No further comments, questions?
Okay, we'll now go questions from the board. If I can kick off some of the questions here, and I'll defer to other board members. So you have read the engineer's review letter, right? And
Yes.
and just confirming, comment 3.1 of the engineer's review letter states the ground floor is shared by the families living on the second and third floors for garage parking, recreation, laundry, and summer kitchen purposes. That's correct?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, so the ground floor is only shared by the second floor. I actually didn't realize, I must have read that a little bit too quickly. The ground floor is only interconnected between the ground and the second floor. The third floor has a separate entrance and has nothing to do to communicate with the upper level, with the
Okay.
lower level, excuse me.
Okay, because the second floor is the only floor that would have basically access to that ground floor without needing to go outside.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. So based on your plans, in that ground floor area, in addition to that laundry, the quote-unquote summer kitchen, study and rec room, you have also a full bathroom, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And that full bathroom consists like a toilet, bathtub, shower, sink, et cetera, right?
That is correct,
Okay,
yes.
so it is a full bathroom, okay. Just out of curiosity, what was the intention of building a full bathroom downstairs when there are two full bathrooms on the second floor?
It's just something that my client wanted to have. Again, we designed it with the thought of having the full interconnectivity between the two and no access from the outside. It's convenient. You do have, rather than going upstairs if you're having a party or something, people are downstairs, you could use that. It's just, it's convenience. I don't know if my client, if it's something that the board seems that it might be an issue, we could easily revise it to a half bath, I believe so. I don't think there would be an issue, but I think it's more of a convenience, especially since we went kind of out of our way just to make sure that there was no way to really convert this into another apartment.
The applicant is okay with changing it to a half bath if that's a problem for the board.
Okay. What is a summer kitchen?
It's just a kitchen that you do, it's another word for a kitchen that you can use downstairs. So lower levels are typically the coolest part of a home. So this is almost designed like a basement, even though it's not in the ground. So usually you'd cook downstairs because heat rises. So it's just another convenience, again, because you have a large rec room downstairs. So you have a formal dining room upstairs, but you have kind of like, in other words, if a guy wanted to create a man cave down here and he wanted to do his wings and all the other things like that. It's things that we've had in our designs, a feature we've had in some of our designs. Our client saw it and he liked it. Before the meeting, I said to him, I said, listen, not sure what the temperature would be with the board. I asked him, I said, if there's any kind of issue there, we could convert that maybe from a summer kitchen, quote unquote, to maybe just putting a sink and a refrigerator down there so you have at least that ability to have drinks and a sink down there. So he's aware of the possible concern, and we could easily, if it would put into resolution, we'd easily change the design.
And this is more of a question maybe for an engineer or attorney. There's no legal definition of a summer kitchen in any of our ordinances or statutes, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it's just a kitchen, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we use the word summer because we already have the main kitchen upstairs. It just,
I would say
I'm
like,
going to be honest with you. Usually with the summer kitchen, there's this patio door that goes out to the back. But we had eliminated it from our drawing, so you're right. We should have probably just called it a kitchen, but
Yeah.
because this way you can come in and outside from the outside.
Okay.
While you're grilling and doing whatever. But in this case, we're not going to have that because we're not having any access to the outside. So it's a secondary kitchen.
and just reconfirm what you're saying. with regards to a door that leads to the outside, there is no door in the ground floor that leads directly outside of the
There is
building?
not. There is not.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just point of clarification, because I'm confused by who can use the garage?
Typically, in these units, it's usually the owner, which we call the ground floor and the second floor, the owner's unit, the garage itself. And then, of course, the site plan's not up, but there are 2 spaces also in the driveway.
So if the owner on the first, really, I'm getting a little feedback here, but if the owner on the first, or the owner's unit, so the ground level and the first level, is the only one who can use the garage, and there's driveway space for the other, so every time that the ground level would want to back out, they have to ask the second floor folks to move their car?
Well, I might have misspoke when I said they cannot use it. It would be an arrangement that would be made between the building, because obviously the garage doors are accessible. If the owner wished to share it, maybe they do one inside, one outside, one inside or outside. I've seen that happen also. So how they use that, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
There is no access from the 3rd floor down to the garage, but certainly you could park in the garage and then use the
So
staircase.
I think that was some of the confusion, because I figured there'd be a shared situation, and then what'll happen here is that if they do share the garage, then they both have access to the rec room and the summer kitchen, and then I'm not sure where the laundry would be for the second floor.
We have a laundry.
Oh,
on
they
the-
have, on the,
Sorry, excuse me.
I'm sorry, the third floor.
We have a laundry on the 3rd floor, and next to, between the kitchen and the closet, there is a laundry there. I'm sorry, it's not labeled, I apologize. But there is a
Yeah.
laundry up there.
There is a laundry room?
Yes, yes, there is one between the kitchen and the closet, in this area here.
Kitchen, the
And, excuse
that
me,
looks like a
Right here,
bathroom.
I'm sorry, I should have zoomed this in, but it's right here.
Oh, there's
It's
laundry
the
there.
side by side.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be concerned about that arrangement as far as cars being shuffled around and access and,
It's unfortunately, there's really no other way to really design, even if we had a sliding door in this and we didn't have a summer kitchen or a full bath, there's really no, this is typical of 2-family homes. We have the 2-car garage, interior, and then 2 on the outside. And then it's up to the landlord to either, make deals with the tenants, I guess. But it's typical, I don't know how else you would design a 2-family home without this situation.
Chairman?
I've just never seen a 2-family home designed this way. Usually there's they have separate garages, separate entrances, as opposed to one person has to enter from the outside, one person can enter from the inside. I've never seen it before. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm sure it does. I just am concerned with conflict.
Just from experience, we've probably designed 200 of these just this year alone. Again, I'm not sure if it's new, I don't think it's new to Union, but if you went around the corner, you usually have 2-car garages. The only other way, what would you do, separate the garages on either side of the house? I'm not sure.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes, thank you. So I heard you say something in the last few minutes that gives me some new insight, I guess. My impression when I reviewed the application was this is 3 2-family homes, and I thought there would be 6 owners. We're saying there will only be 3 deeded owners of there'll be an owner of each building, and the owner will then have the opportunity to rent the second unit?
I'm assuming so.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it would be a
That's the
condo
intent.
situation.
correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, I do, yeah. Practically speaking, there's no elevator in this 2-story, 3-story building, no.
No, ma'am.
So that a handicapped person could not access any of these stairs to get to any of these apartments. Would that be true, sir?
Yeah, it's a 2-family home. If a person's handicapped, we have a ground floor that's at ground level.
And is that not the summer kitchen where the refrigerator's going to be?
What was that? I'm
You
sorry.
can't live in there. person can
No,
reside
no,
in
you
there.
can't, but you could come in through the ground level, and that staircase that's directly interconnected to the upper level,
I
they
can't-
could, they
if
could
I'm
put in,
handicapped, I can't climb
a chair,
stairs.
they could put a chairlift, but
Chairlift.
there really aren't any two-family homes that, number one, are required to have any type of ADA access.
And I'm not really saying requirements, and I respect your explanation. I find it impractical.
Have some questions regarding the ground floor again. I know you just labeled, like the summer kitchen, really a kitchen. The study, I mean, is there anything, it's just another room, essentially, right?
Like an
There's
office or a study, correct, yes.
Office, study, can be used for a diverse array of purposes. Storage, it's just a room, essentially. That same logic can apply to the rec room, correct? It's just a big room, right?
That
There's is there not any specialized structures in that room that would have to force it to be used for a specific purpose?
No, it's just labeled a rec room.
Okay. Now, you're a licensed architect in New York and New Jersey for close to 30 years. Congratulations on you. I'm intrigued of the use of the word rec room, and it's because I stumbled upon an article from the New York Times titled, "Rec room is the new way to expand an apartment." And in that article, it stated, quote, "Selling real estate in New York has long involved its own sort of code, but as developers seek to wring every last bit of space out of their projects, another term has cropped up more and more, rec room, meaning an underground space that is not legally a bedroom, although many people use it that way." So as an architect of almost 30 years of licensed experience in New York and in New Jersey, are you aware of this phenomenon as well in New York?
Exactly why we designed it the way we did. There is
Okay.
no way to convert this lower level unless you want to do it sort of like a commune, because you can't access this without going either through the garage or coming in through the second floor.
Well, let me ask you this, right? A dwelling unit is essentially if you have a bedroom, a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and a full bathroom, right? Essentially.
Yes.
Typical definition of dwelling unit. Now, when I look at the ground floor level, honestly, could you simply put a locked door next to the stairs and insert another door that leads directly outside, and that would convert it to another dwelling unit?
Where would you insert the door?
So, for example, is there a possibility of replacing the front window with a door? Is there a possibility of putting a door in the study that leads to the outside?
Yes, you can. But
Yep.
you would have to get building permits for that,
Yep.
and it would get kicked back.
Now, it would get kicked back because it's an RB zone, right? And that is only for 2 dwelling units, correct?
Well, it's not only just the zone, it's also the code, right? This is designed as a two-family. If you created a three-family out of this, it would have to be sprinklered. The staircase would have to be remodified, so there would have to be a lot of other changes that would kick in that requirement.
Now, I'm kind of intrigued based on our comments from our engineer who hasn't found this type of design for a 2-family home, that why, with this atypical design from even our township engineer, why would we build, provide, and propose this specific type of 2-family home on an acre of land when you have an acre of land to work with?
We're putting 3 of the same one on that acre, and that whole acre is unusable. And we do have restrictions, zoning restrictions, that kind of kept us at the size that we are at and the proportions that we are at.
But it doesn't restrict you to basically the configuration that you are proposing tonight with your architectural plans, right? It's not restricting you of this setup of rooms for each floor and basically where each room would go and et cetera, right?
I'm really not following that.
The ordinances.
It's a 2-family home.
It's a 2-family home, but I'm saying our ordinances does not restrict you to exactly design your architectural plans exactly like this. That you are not restricted to just that design, correct?
No, but I can get you 3 other designs from our office that would fit this footprint. They would be almost the exact same thing. It would be 2-car garage, a rec room, a study, maybe not a secondary kitchen, which, like I said, our owner, the owner would get rid of. But it would really be the same, almost exact thing. It would just be a different, he happened to like this one because of the exterior and the way it lays out. But like I said, most of our typical two-family homes are the same thing. Ground floor, second floor, interconnected with a rec room downstairs because, you know, we have a formal living room, but you have the rec room where the kids would play. And then the 3rd floor, just the mirror image. So, again, I'm sorry if this plan isn't the kind you've seen before, but like I said, we have different versions, but they all would be kind of designed very typically.
All right. I'm done for my questions for now. Mr. Cohan?
Yes, thank you. So actually, I wanted to pursue this earlier. I'm sorry I didn't sustain my questioning. So one of the elements of the application is a variance to allow for a 3rd floor where our code only specifies 2 floors. Is there a way to design this as a 2-family home without having a 3rd floor?
Not really, unless we were to sink the building into the ground, and then you would have a driveway that would go down into the garage.
Yeah, I mean, I have concerns about the need for a 3rd floor because it's not compliant with the ordinance. And there was something else then in your last statements that generated a question that I'm sorry.
We do have our engineer that actually made it tonight. So
I'm sorry?
we do have our engineer who made it tonight.
Oh,
so
okay.
He can address that. But one of the main reasons why we have the height variance is due to the grading of the property. So he can testify more about that after architectural testimony.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
Mr. Frey?
Sir, how are you?
I'm all right, how are you?
All right. Did I hear you say that you would be willing to take care of all requests from the fire department?
We have already, yes.
So you spoke to Captain Guzman?
Yes.
So Captain Guzman does not want NFPA 13R? Does not want that?
No, so we discussed everything with him, and we have an updated report from him from the 19th that says the fire department has reviewed the revised plans. All request concerns have been answered or explained away. No further comments.
So when you say explained away, he does not want to have a sprinkled building?
He said we have the two separate doors that are outside. Sprinklering's not,
You're good.
yeah.
Okay. Is there any backyard space?
There's a little bit, I mean, I don't have the site plan in front of me, but again, we have our civil engineer here, so he can
We have the
show
site
you.
plan.
It varies to each site. because
There
of
is some
configuration.
So
Yeah,
if someone had a dog, they could put a dog
yeah.
there? Okay, all right. And then the attorney, you're asking for a variance? Who does that?
Yes, so we do have our planner who will go through the variances we
Okay,
are
all right.
requesting.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
But one quick one, and again, practically speaking, if there's no backyard or very small, is there a rear exit? Didn't appear
Not
to be one.
a rear, there's no rear exit,
No
but
back door.
we have the 2 decks on the rear.
Typically, homes have a back door.
What was that?
Typically, older homes have a back door. There is no back door here.
There's no back door, but there is the 2 sliding doors from each apartment onto the deck.
So you'd go out to your deck to
Correct.
use it, but you could not exit there, because there's nothing to go to.
No.
Okay, thanks.
One last question. So, and this was the one that I wanted to ask before, those decks are going to basically face Route 22?
I believe so, yeah, actually, I think in the configuration. The civil engineer can confirm that. I've seen so many couple of different versions, but I'm pretty sure, at least 2 of them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Actually,
question.
I do
Stephen, I have a question.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
With regard to the 3rd floor, there's no exit, there's no door back there. Is there a fire escape or, and I'm just surprised the fire department didn't require a back entrance to that 3rd floor.
No, so We have the deck that's out there, so two-family homes do not require, actually, sometimes a third-family home won't, a three-family home won't either. The staircase that we have in here, it's fully rated. It's a fire-rated staircase, so you come, it's compartmentalized. So if there is a fire, you come straight down through the staircase. It's not connected to the second floor or the ground floor at all. So if there's a smoke condition, either the lower level or the second floor level, it would never get into that staircase because that staircase leads you directly outside. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have to have the fire sprinkler, because there's no connectivity between the two in a fire situation.
But if the staircase is on fire, how do those folks on the third floor get out?
Well, the staircase, the entire building is constructed of 5/8 sheetrock, which is a half-hour fire rating. When it's doubled up, it's 1 hour. So usually there's no, usually the fire is usually inside the house. The fire staircases, I don't think fire stairs ever catch on fire, to be honest with you, because of that construction. But because of this being a 5/8 building, the entire building is 5/8 inch construction, meaning that you could take a torch to it for a half hour and it won't catch fire until, after the fibers start to work out. So that's, and again, this is all by code. It's completely legal and done to code. And so that's typically the way we do these homes. That's why they're safer than homes that were built years ago. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, yes.
Any other questions? Just to follow up, I know that there was a letter provided by our health officer, Mr. Gopis, and you have taken a look at that letter.
I don't think I saw the health letter.
Oh.
I apologize. But if you have a question, I could try to answer it now.
Sure. Basically, the comment that Mr. Gopis provided is that buffer for road noise from Route 22 should be installed. I'm not sure if it's more of a comment for the engineer or for you as the architect, but I assume that that comment can be addressed either in either one or both directions. So
Well, I can answer to the building itself in terms
Yes,
of...
please.
The building itself, not the buffer, or the landscaping, if that's maybe one you might be implying.
I'm not exactly sure.
But with this res check that I mentioned early on, the windows that we're now currently using are a certain level of soundproofing because of the improved energy efficiency. So it kind of doubles in both. So everything, all the materials, all the things that we're using now on these buildings, with the walls also being thicker, because they're going from 2x4s, which was typical for 100 years, to 2x6s now with the insulation. So the houses themselves are a tighter, they're not airtight, but they're a much tighter and more efficient, not only in energy, but also in acoustics.
And would that also, I know we talk about noise from Route 22, and I would assume that you are aware of Route 22 being a very high trafficked area. I think our master plan says that there is an annual daily trips of 50,000 to 100,000 trips based on our master plan. And that it's also a truck route. So with that highway around 30 feet away from these homes, is the build of these homes sufficient to absorb traffic-induced vibrations that go beyond noise, that there might be vibrations that can reverberate through the soil to the ground and into the homes? Has that been accounted for and integrated into the architectural plans?
It wasn't integrated into the architectural plans. There's really, as far as the ground goes, we have landscaping around all of these, so there really wouldn't be any noise transmission from that type of vibration. Most of it would be airborne.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we only design it to the certain standards that we have to. But there's really not much else you can do to actually soundproof the home.
And I think the only other thing that you can do is traffic calming type of initiatives. And maybe you're not the best person, but I think we would doubt that NJDOT would entertain banning trucks on 22 or entertain reducing the speed limit from 45 miles per hour just for your applicant. You say that that's pretty difficult to do, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, we will now go questions from the public. Yes.
Eric O's, 1083 Mayfair Road, Union, New Jersey. I'm not near here, but I pass here very often. I have a question for the architect, a number of questions. Could you zoom into the elevation? I'd like to know what the maximum building height is. Because, well, first thing, what is the floor-to-floor height per floor? Because it looks like the lower level is higher. Looks like, and there's no dimension, it appears. So you got 10.3, I'm sorry.
So you
Go
have
ahead.
9 feet on, it's a 9-foot ceiling height for the second floor, and 8 feet for the third floor. 8 feet, 9, 9, 8.
Okay, so the maximum, what is, okay, looked at a dimension to the side, the overall dimension. What does that say on the elevation? Yep. To the right. Yep.
34.6.
Okay, the maximum permitted building height is? I'm asked, that was the question. What is the maximum permitted building height per the RB? 32. I'll tell you.
32, yeah.
So you're asking for another variance in height, correct?
Yes.
Okay, didn't understand that as being one of the variances. What percentage did you pass your res check by? Do you recall?
We haven't done the res check yet.
Oh, I just thought you just mentioned that you did res check
No,
on this building.
We do the res check when we do the construction drawings. That'll let us know whether or not.
So how do you know that you're passing the energy code?
Well, the house itself, the actual guts of the house haven't been designed yet. So the insulation, so what more than likely what will happen when we do the res check, it will let us know due to the square footage of the house and the windows, how much exterior insulation we'll have to put on it. We already know 2x6s only received R21. We can get
Yeah.
about R60 up in the roof.
Understood.
That's the best we can do.
Acknowledge.
So it's the exterior envelope, so it could be anywhere from a quarter inch up to an inch of exterior insulation.
Exterior continuous insulation, am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Is that what you're, I'm asking you to tell me.
Yeah, continuous insulation.
Continuous, okay, so you're going to have continuous insulation on the outside, then you're going to have cavity of what? Cavity insulation between the studs. The 2x6s, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
What would that be?
it'll be R21.
Okay. And on the exterior, the continuous insulation?
Don't know until we run it.
You're not sure. Okay, so I was under the impression that you did run a res check. That's what I thought I heard.
No, I said that's what we'll be doing.
I thought I heard. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll make it brief as I can. I'm almost done. Oh, hold on. Okay. Hold tight. So you're asking for a variance in stories as well as height. You haven't done the res check, but you're confirming that you're going to be compliant. I was asking for the percentage. I was curious. What about the outside-indoor sound transmission on the windows? Did you do that?
No, we don't do any of that until we start running all the calculations.
Okay, so how do you know you're going to be compliant? That's my question. When I say you're,
We have to be
Ms.
compliant.
Architect, pardon me.
When we
Go
submit
ahead.
the drawings to the building department, they review all of this at the
I'm
same
aware
time,
what they
and-
do, yes.
And they would kick it back if we're
My-
non-compliant.
But my question to you now is, how do you know you're compliant when you haven't run the check? And that's on everything I just mentioned. I'm talking about energy code as well as the outside-inside sound transmission.
This particular house was probably built a few times over the last few years.
Not here.
Not here, but,
Okay.
but you guys are in the same, where they were built would be the same energy zone, the same climate zone, excuse me, as this house. But again, it's really going to be a question of just the continuous insulation that's going to change. But we do, by the way, we do put an STC rating, we put in rubber on the floor, we put insulation in the floors, we put resilient channel underneath the ceilings, so we do comply to all the STC ratings. Again, it's code requirement, but at this stage, it's the planning board stage, so we don't really, or zoning board stage, depending on where we are, in this case planning, we don't go that far.
Okay.
Just because we know
Okay.
it's going to work eventually anyway.
Okay. Until it doesn't. But that's just a statement, pardon me. Only questions. Let's go to the third floor plan. Oh, it's right there. I'm sorry. Could you, so which is your rated stair, as you call it? The rated stair.
This main staircase.
That's your main stair that's rated? Okay. What rating is it?
It's a 1-hour rating.
It's a 1-hour rated door?
Between the second and, between the ground and second. It doesn't have to be rated for itself because it's on its own level. But it will be because that wall that you see there will have 5/8" sheetrock on both sides.
Okay, because my understanding of a rated stair is that it's compartmentalized. Could you show me how that stair is compartmentalized? Because it looks like as if it's open to go down, and then there's a door to go out. But how is that stair rated, and how is it compartmentalized?
The entire apartment, it's continuous.
So the stair is not rated, the entire apartment is rated? That's the question.
Yeah, it's rated to it as an extension of the staircase, I guess you'd put it that way.
Because that's not a rated stair. Because the thing is, a rated stair has rated doors. And on a 1-hour, sir, may
Is it
I?
a question, or?
I understand it's a question, but I'm following up your
What's the
question.
question?
I just asked the question, and
I
what I'm
just-
saying is that the stair is not compartmentalized, therefore it is not rated.
It doesn't, all right. It doesn't need to be rated from itself because it's one continuous path of egress that runs from its own unit straight to the exterior. So that's how it's.
That's
rated
not the
in itself.
definition by code of a rated stair is. A rated stair is compartmentalized, and a 1-hour stair has a 3/4-hour rating, a 2-hour stair's got a 1.5, and you know that. So therefore, that stair would need to have a door that is rated door for that to be a fire stair. So, and
But it's
listen,
not required to have a door.
therefore, it's not a rated stair. Am I correct?
I get that. And at one point I said-
I don't want this to be a grilling session. I apologize. No, I am, but I'm not getting answers, ma'am. So that's why I'm trying to. Does a rated stair need to be compartmentalized?
A fully rated stair has to be compartmentalized, yes.
So is that a rated stair?
It's not a rated stair for its purposes, no.
Okay, so it's not a rated stair, correct?
I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what it has to do with this application, but.
But
you're
I
right,
didn't.
it's not.
But, okay,
You're
so.
right, it's not.
But it's not. That's what I'm getting for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. All right, not done yet. Okay, I don't want to get into statements, but my understanding of what Mr. Lee indicated about the article he read in the Times, it appears that
Is there a question with this?
I promise.
As I say,
Promise.
it's like Jeopardy, just state it in the form of a question.
Yes, absolutely, okay. How do you keep someone from renting the first floor when there is a door from grade, well, not the exterior grade, but from the driveway into that unit? How do you get someone not to rent that unit as a 1-bedroom? By the way, I would love that as a 1-bedroom. It's big enough. I've had smaller apartments in Brooklyn. That's the question.
You'd have to go through the garage into that door to get to the rec room.
So, the owner, okay, if I may, the owner has the second floor. He's renting out the third floor. How do you get him not to rent out the first floor with that door from the garage? That's the question.
I wouldn't get him to do anything because
I-
I'm not the code
but-
office, but that is, first of all, extremely highly illegal because the only means of
Not-
egress this apartment would have is through a garage.
Illegal, yes, but done all the time, and you know that.
Again, I'm only designing the home, sir. I'm
Okay.
not renting it.
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
doing
But you know,
anything but designing it.
as a licensed professional, you also have got to do things that you know are code for now, but also kind of prevent your clients from doing something that's not exactly code. And you know, again,
But, sir,
you made it
just
almost
remember-
as
You
if,
couldn't design
Just
a
remember,
lower
state
level.
it in the
pardon
form
me,
of a
as
question.
questions,
Yeah.
you're right,
You
okay.
couldn't design a lower level without that ever happening,
Okay.
without that possibility.
What is the, okay, not topography, because I know you're going to defer to the civil engineer. Did you have anything having to do with the building's positioning on the site at all?
No, that really was designed by the civil only because of the way the contours work on the site, which the site does have many
I'm not
contours.
speaking topography, I'm talking about building location in relationship to the lot lines.
Well, topography does have
No, it does not. Okay,
Yeah, let him answer your
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
and then you can respond.
Topography
Got it.
has a lot to do with it. because depending on where some of the site slopes or doesn't slope, we might have to turn the building slightly, move it over slightly. So in some instances, it might be closer to one lot line and closer to another. But to answer your question, the civil engineer designed the site based on our footprint for the best, most efficient design that he thought would work.
Okay, so you had nothing to do with the location of the building on the site?
I did not.
Okay, okay, no, that's the answer. Okay, no. So you don't know what the setbacks are?
I mean, I was familiar with them, but I don't have them memorized.
Okay, so that's why you don't have a site plan. Got any renderings of this? Just not the elevation. I'm talking about renderings. A little color, so we can have an idea what this looks like.
No,
Just
sir.
curious.
No, sir.
Next one, next time around, would you? It'd be great. No further.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further questions from the public?
I would like to make a note, if the whole rec room and study in the kitchen is an issue with the board, we are willing to just make it storage space and call it a day if this is a main concern for the board.
Okay, noted for the record.
Thank you. No.
No further questions from the public? Just want to make sure. Okay. Would you,
We would like to call our engineer on con.
okay.
Mr. Khan, can you spell your last name for the record, please?
Khan.
And sir, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you go ahead and please provide your credentials for the board so you can be accepted as an expert, please?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, master's in construction management. Doing this for 35 years, testified in front of federal court, superior court, and hundreds of boards throughout New Jersey. I was here yesterday in the zoning board, but I have appeared in front of this board as well as over hundreds of boards throughout New Jersey.
Board stipulates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you go ahead and take us through the site plan?
Yeah, let me find the site plan. Okay, I believe a lot of things you might have already heard about the variances and things of that nature and the zoning. I will just probably quickly touch through some of them. Okay. So the property is located in RB2 Family Residential District. Currently it's one single lot. The proposal here is to subdivide the lot into 4 lots. 3 lots will be for residential, 2 family dwellings, as you heard in the testimony. The 4th lot is a common lot, which would be under a common ownership or HOA, which basically consists of access roadway, lighting, street lighting improvements, and circulation and parking, additional parking. We are complying with the since the total unit count is 6 residential components, so it automatically qualifies for the New Jersey State EV requirements. We are over 5 units, so we have to comply with the state EV requirements, and we are proposing EV charging stations. And of course, at the same time, you can take credit based on what the state gives you, 10% of the required. So adjusting all those parking numbers, the requirement is 14 spaces for this project, and we are proposing 18 spaces. Okay. So the sheet that is in front of you is the existing site, the way it exists currently. As I mentioned, it's one lot, and it extends to the north, by Route 22, and as such, since Route 22 is to the north of the site, we have a DOT embankment easement along the northern property line as shown in the shaded plan here. So this area is out of basically it has restrictions that we cannot touch or we cannot develop or we cannot do any grading to it because this is an embankment easement from DOT for Route 22. So the area that is available for development is anything but that easement portion. Okay, so the way we are proposing is, as I mentioned, like we will have our access from Chestnut Street. It will be through, the access will be on lot, what we're calling is, I think, 20.04. Let's see. 2.04, sorry. 2.04. So the 2.04 lot is the lot that mostly consists of the access driveway, a circulation, a turnaround, and additional parking, and access to the driveways for each dwelling unit. The rear of lot 2.04 is partially is the DOT embankment area, and we're leaving it as green or pervious surface, and we are doing some planting there for landscaping purposes, like some shade trees and some shrubs. The residential lots are lot 2.01, which is to the west of this lot, 2.02, which is to the east, and up on the top or further east is lot 2.03. As you heard the testimony from the architect, the houses are pretty much identical, and they are placed, and I think there was a question regarding the placement of the houses. There are a couple of reasons that we placed the house they were like this. First of all, the bulk requirements. We have to maintain certain setbacks, rear setbacks, front setbacks, all those requirements. So that was one of the main reason to comply with the bulk requirements for this project. The other, as you can see in the existing conditions plans, the site slopes considerably from north, where the embankment for Route 22 is, and all the way up to Chestnut Street. So there are very steep slopes present on the site. So the consideration was to provide a flatter area for the lots which will have residential houses. So that's what was the other placement or the other criteria for the placement. And the third criteria was the circulation, having easy access from the proposed driveway that will serve 3 lots in and out of the driveways for each individual lots. So there were all these criteria that pretty much blended, and we found this as a more acceptable as far as the grading, as far as the elimination of any bulk variances, and of course the safety and circulation of the driveway. So once you enter from Chestnut Street, we have a full-service driveway, 24 feet wide, which is a standard two-way driveway that serves the cars or the vehicles entering from Chestnut. And then we have driveways, individual driveways for lot 2.01 and 2.02, where the owners or the tenants can then just make right or left to get to the garages and get to the driveways. If you go further up, we are providing additional parking spaces and EV charging spaces. These are common parking spaces for guests or other individuals who might be visiting, or any deliveries that might be coming into the property. And then, of course, we have the driveway that again serves the last lot, the easternmost lot. We are providing one handicap, van accessible handicap space, which is fully compliant, and also the trash and solid waste and recyclable area right here. We are proposing a turnaround, and again, when I'm going to go through my circulation plan, I will show how that circulation works. The idea here is that this turnaround area is designed to accommodate a fire vehicle or a fire truck to basically enter the site in case of an emergency, and they have enough room to turn around and leave Chestnut Street. Okay. Then again, the next sheet is basically the grading plan. As you can see with these dark lines, how steep the site is. We try to maintain as much as possible to match the existing grades while providing positive drainage, and the drainage for each individual houses as well as the roadway, and not to create steep slopes for the driveways. So, but again, the overall idea here is like, again, just to make sure like everything works seamlessly with the grading as well as the houses. And one of the reason for the height variance is, of course, the grading as well, because as you can see, the grades falls very drastically throughout the site. So that creates that third story situation as well as the height situation to some of the houses. Okay, we are proposing all new utilities. One thing actually I just want to touch base before I go further into this is before we finalize this particular layout, we had a couple of meetings with the town engineer, and I think it was Mr. Hedger at that time. And we presented quite a few concepts to him, and we got feedback. And this was the concept that we all agreed, and I believe we got the blessing that, okay, this is probably more doable concept, and that's the reason. Originally, we started with the municipal roadway. And then I believe because we have to run the utilities, all the new utilities from Chestnut, which include water, gas, electric, sewer, as well as the stormwater management system that goes for the individual houses as well as for the roadway lot. So that was discussed, and it was said like, okay, it's better to have a private road so that owners for all these maintenance will be on the homeowner association. So just a brief history, like again, this particular concept that you see went through quite a few iterations, and finally this was the one that was signed off, and then we proceeded with the design of this project. Okay, so the next plan is the lighting and landscaping plan. As you can see, we are proposing a good chunk amount of new landscaping, including evergreen trees and deciduous trees, plus there are some shrubs. And also the other improvement that we are doing is like we are proposing decorative street light. And the way the street light is like this decorative fixture that we selected to give like more residential look for the driveway, and rather than looking at it as like just another driveway entering into the thing, like it will give a more like a residential development look for this particular type of lights. And again, these lights are all LED type light fixtures that we are proposing, and we did prepare a lighting plan which complies with the requirements as well. The other plan, as I mentioned, is the fire circulation plan. And we run the template for the fire truck, which shows that the fire truck can enter through Chestnut Street. They can access any house or any of the three houses, and then they can back up into this turnaround area and they can leave the Chestnut Street. The same thing is true for any passenger cars or any delivery vehicles, that they have ample room to circulate around without backing onto the Chestnut Street. As part of this project, we also contacted the county, and based on, I know like Chestnut Street is a county road, however there is, and I believe our traffic engineer probably went through in detail about the traffic signal and alterations to the traffic signal, which is under the jurisdiction of the township, not the county, but we got a letter of exemption from the county that they're not concerned with this project. It's not going to impact any of the county infrastructure, whether it relates to the traffic light or it relates to stormwater management. So we pretty much comply, and they give us a letter of exemption as far as for this project. We did receive a letter from Collier's Engineering, and there are, I think, again, this is the letter that we received, and some of these comments are already incorporated into the plans, but most of these comments are mostly housekeeping type comments, which I don't see any issue. If this project gets approved, we will comply, and will comply with these requirements. I believe, and I'll take any questions if anybody has any
I have
questions.
no further questions for him.
Okay, questions from the board?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go
We'll
ahead, you go.
start with Mrs. Khan and then Committeewoman Terrell.
Can you elaborate more about the drainage system that you're going to put in this?
Sure. So as I don't know if you all know, like township, Union Township has a very strict drainage requirements, strict standards, where usually they require a much larger system to capture a certain amount of rainfall. So we designed these drainage systems in accordance with the township ordinance. So if you look at the plans, each lot will have a dry well system, which incorporates, which basically consists of 2 dry wells. And all the roof leaders are tied for each houses is tied into those dry well system. And again, this is one of the system that we designed is called infiltration system. Of course, it's heavily relies on the permeability of the soil. And one of the comment in Collier's engineering is that we need to do a soil testing in order to make sure that the permeability of the soils in the project site will work for this dry well system, which we will do as part of the resolution compliance. In case, if that infiltration system doesn't work, we have an option of going a detention-based system, which basically consists of pipes, and that can hold the water and then slowly discharge. So, I mean, there are options, but again, for now, we are designing the infiltration system. We have 2 dry wells for each house, and as well as we have a drainage system for the roadway runoff or the driveway runoff, and where we are showing these dry well systems for that too. What is that again? Soil testing we have to do, and based on my experience in the area, I believe we'll have decent permeability. But just in case, if the soil results comes out that it doesn't have good permeability, we will design an alternate system that, of course, will be reviewed by the engineering department and the board engineer, and will work with them if need to be.
Mr. Khan, the one question I had regarding that dry wells in the driveway area, I know that it's tied to the trench drain, right? It's going to go into the dry wells. Was there an overflow from those dry wells?
Right now, basically, there is no overflow, but I think we got the comment, and I think what I'm thinking is like to run an overflow pipe to the low point from these dry wells. We will incorporate
Yeah,
that comment.
I just want to make sure that in the event that we have it overflow, that we don't have an issue with the water pushing back onto the street. Maybe we can look at, there is an inlet at the frontage of that property you might be able to tie into.
Understood, and I think that was a very valid comment, and
All right.
we will incorporate that.
Thank you.
So my question is related to the 6 parking space, the guest parking spaces. So
Yeah.
I just want to clarify. There's 6 guest parking spaces. There's 3 EV spots, and then there's 1 handicap. Are they deducted from the 6, or are they in addition to the 6?
No, they are part of that.
They're part of the 6.
They are part of the total 18 spaces.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question that I would like to know the answer to, and I don't, and you likely do. When there are EV parking spaces, I understand there's credit given and so on. My question is, must an EV vehicle occupy them?
Again, it's a homeowners association type setup, so it doesn't need to be.
Okay.
But again, like if any of the tenant has an electric vehicle, they will get the priority in getting
And
those spaces.
Then the question I also have then is, if you have an EV vehicle and you live there, is that parking space, are you allowed to keep that parking space as your own or to occupy it overnight? In many of our situations, it is allowed to be used while you're charging your vehicle, and then it must be moved. Is that the case?
That is the understanding. Usually how the EV parking stations work, like a car parked there, they get charged and then they move back.
Yes.
In this case,
So
they will
that-
move
so that
back
these
to
parking
their...
spaces are, it's questionable whether or not they could be occupied as valid spaces for those who live or visit for any distance of time.
Yeah, actually, as part of the houses themselves, they are self-sufficient for their parking. So this is just an additional parking that we are proposing. So let's say like if one of the owner
Yes.
has an EV and they park there and they charge, after the car is
They're gonna move
charged,
it.
they can move it back to their
And the
parking.
other question, just because I'm not certain of how this is laid out, is that the only handicap space there? And why would it be an EV space? Because they're free?
It's required by the law, by the state law that.
I understand
yeah.
the handicap
You
is
know,
required.
handicap as well as that has to be EV. So that is also in the state regulations, that at least one EV charging stations had to be
I see.
handicap.
Are there any other handicap locations available?
No.
Well, handicapped can't use these apartments anyway, so I got you. Thank you.
So there's a handicap space, but no handicap entrance into the building, yeah. No, I'm talking about there's no handicap accessibility into the house itself, but there's a handicap parking space.
Except for through the garage, as the architect testified.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes, thanks. Mr. Khan, I'm not sure you're the right witness to pose this question to, but the proposal to create the private road from the fourth lot, it gives me great concern, frankly. I note in the technical comments in the engineer's letter that there will be a homeowners association set up. But I guess the question is, and maybe this goes through council, in the event that owners who may be part of the homeowners association are disinclined to pay the cost of the maintenance of that road, what happens?
The maintenance is going to be handled regardless. It's just whoever, normally how HOAs work, if you don't pay your dues, eventually the HOA can put a lien on your house for the price of that, whatever the overdue pays, like the non-payment dues are. But the rest of the HOA, when you have your fee, when you pay your monthly fee, there's an extra buffer in there for reserves and all that. So the property is going to be maintained regardless. It's just whoever's not paying their dues, if they continue, the HOA can file a lien on the property.
Has there been any estimate of what the cost will be to maintain this street surface?
Not as of yet. Normally that's builders during the process. The builders do that. And I have been talking to the board attorney, and it would be a condition of approval to provide that prior to any COs or anything.
I mean, that's a set of facts that I personally am going to need to be satisfied that I can support this application. I would imagine that, I mean, I know what the township budgets and pays for street reconstruction on an annual basis. Now, it's for the entire town. But I'm certain it would run into six figures if the street needed to be rebuilt or repaved or whatever. And that amounts to an awful large bill for any individual homeowner. I think that's something that this board needs to consider before approving this application, because if we approve an application that can't, and for a property that can't be sustained, we're buying a problem for the community, and I'm not interested in that.
Understood.
I just want to clarify something. The HOA, do they own any of the driveways, or is it just the one lot?
The HOA would own the entire, just that one lot.
Just the one lot, and then not, okay, I just wanted to be,
Each homeowner will be responsible for their own driveway.
okay.
I guess one more question. Are you aware of any other private streets that are owned and maintained by a homeowners association, such as being proposed here in the Township of Union?
Not in Union personally.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Frame?
Yeah.
Will there be a fire hydrant installed in this property?
That is one of the comment, and yes, we will.
Yes?
we will
Okay.
address the fire.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Khan, one other question regarding the, I guess it's kind of a circulation question within the site, but, you know, I'm a little troubled by by this parking arrangement that you're going to have two cars that are going to be owned by the owner, which is going to occupy the second floor, in the garage, and then you're going to have the other cars in a driveway that's not that wide. So the shuffling of cars, can you envision, any other situation that would make that better? I know that we don't want to run into an impervious issue, so you don't want too much pavement, but it does concern because the driveways aren't even that deep. We're looking at 20-foot deep driveways, so you could barely fit a car in there. Then you got to move it out, so you're going to have it backing up onto the driveway. So, it's obviously not ideal, but is there anything you could think of that might make that better?
Usually, in a situation like that the way I suggest to my clients is that if we do a tandem parking, like one in the garage, one behind it, and give it to one unit, and the next one to the next unit, that eliminates that shuffling and this thing. And
Yeah.
that's what I usually do. And usually that can be written into a lease agreement.
Yeah, which traditionally that's what I've seen, but then you have the issue of, the being able to access that main level and then the second level, so it becomes an access issue. So I think that's something that you guys may want to talk through and try to figure out how that works.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? I have some questions. Going back to that parking space with the EV and the handicap, if let's make believe, if I was a handicapped driver of a non-EV vehicle, how would I know that I could use that spot?
We can always put a sign, number one. Number two, we are not required, we are required to provide handicap parking spaces, but it's not for the residents. We are not, by requirement, these individual houses, like any single family or two family houses, they're not required to have handicap unless if there is a person who needs these services, then they usually put the ramps and things like that. But we are not required. But as part of the overall parking number that we are providing, we need to do that. So usually what we can do is right now we are showing 3 EVs, maybe 3 stations. But the EV technology has advanced randomly. Now they have one unit, a very small unit, and you can put it between the 2 parking spaces that can serve 1 unit, can serve 2 spaces. So this is just for depiction that we are showing it. So depending upon what the developer will select as far as the EV unit, we can put 1 unit. Of course, it can be handicap, and we can put a sign, as well as it can become an EV charging station if they need it to. So there are different options that we can work through with the parking and EV requirements.
So are you saying in your testimony that it's not required to have a combined EV handicap spot?
It's not required, but if you're providing 1 handicap, it has to have a EV access. Let's say if we have 2 handicap in this project, then we are only required to have 1 EV handicap.
Okay. But that spot, if that's a sole handicap spot, a non-EV vehicle can park in that spot?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
And again, we can provide a sign as well. Again, we will have a handicap sign, parking sign as well there. And we can always tell the person who will be using that space that they can park.
Okay. So I know our engineer also talked about soil testing, and can you just remind the board, was soil testing done for the property?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So that means you're not able to basically determine the nature of the soil or determine the hydrologic group of the soil?
We did, actually. We did, not the actual testing on the site, but we have a lot of data available through county soil surveys.
Okay.
So we did review, when we designed this system, we did review the county-wide database. And based on that, we designed these systems. But again, the county data is general, it's not site-specific. That's why usually most of the engineers recommend that before you install the system, you do your own soil testing just to confirm that.
Okay. So based on the data that you have extrapolated from, are you able to describe the nature of the soil at this moment?
Yes, it's hydrological soil group type C.
Type C.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you explain to the board, what does hydrologic soil group C mean?
It's a composition of the soil, like how the soil is, how much silt, how much clay, and the permeability, the rate of discharge through the soils, and all that physical properties.
So A would be high infiltration, D would be the lowest infiltration rate.
That is correct.
Okay, so C is basically around the slower end.
It's the slower end, but it doesn't preclude it from not having a detention basin.
Okay, all right. Now, on the site plan, with the introduction of a lot of these homes and an introduction of a private road, obviously impervious coverage is going to increase. What's the current percentage of impervious coverage now, and what would be the proposed post-development impervious coverage percentage?
I can probably give you that number. Okay, existing lot, currently the lot coverage is 23.04% and impervious. Yeah, so 23, and the proposed is 38.28%.
Okay. So impervious coverage is going to basically a little bit more than double, correct?
No, not really necessarily. Yeah, I would say probably 75%.
Wait.
23 to 38.
So what's the pre-development again? I'm sorry.
23.04.
Sorry, what's the first column of this chart?
Is the, sorry. It's 17, sorry, my bad. Yeah, 17.31 is existing and is 38, yes. So it will be doubled.
So it will be more than double. Okay.
Yes.
As you are, I took a look at your stormwater runoff calculations. You use a rational method in calculating it, right? Okay. I'm very interested to understand how you utilize the coefficient and determine these coefficients for buildings to be 0.9, pavement to be 0.85, and lawn area to be 0.2.
Yeah,
Can you
again,
elaborate?
Sorry?
Can you elaborate on how you arrive
Absolutely,
those
yeah.
coefficients?
Yeah. Union Township, they have their own criteria how to design stormwater. So they give us these coefficients, they give us the storm depth that we need to contain over the impervious coverage. So it's not typical rational and modified rational that we did here. It's basically, it's a one-page sheet that usually is provided, or it's on your website as well from the engineering department. And that tells you exactly how to calculate the stormwater storage. And we comply with those requirements as per your ordinance requirements.
Okay. Because are you also aware that there are coefficients that I know you're following the engineering department's template, and that's fully acknowledged, but there are also other guidances out there from
Absolutely.
the New Jersey Best Practices Manual for Stormwater Management, right?
Right.
And basically, they establish your coefficients based on what land use and what your hydrologic soil group is.
Correct.
So if I pull from that table, I know the township provided 0.9, 0.85, and 0.2. But are you aware that the Stormwater Best Practices Manual state that for basically any paved areas, which includes parking lots, roofs, and driveways, and et cetera, regardless of a hydrologic soil group, your C would be 0.99, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and you acknowledge that.
Correct.
And then, based on your response that this hydrologic soil group is C, and it really depends on the lot size, actually, your C would be, I think, based on the table, 0.63 instead of 0.2, right?
I have to look at it.
You have to look at the chart, yeah. But considering that you have 0.9 here and then 0.99 for the best practices manual, considering for pavement you have 8.5 here and 0.99 in the best practices manual, those are pretty significant discrepancies, like differences. I'll say differences because it's not your discrepancy, it's a difference, right?
Correct.
So if we utilize the state best practices manual coefficients, we might actually deal with a higher runoff number, essentially, correct?
That's possible, yes.
That's possible. And that could ultimately affect the design of your dry wells as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But just to clarify, again, we followed the ordinance. Ordinance says design the system based on this, the method, the way we designed it. So I think, yeah, you might need to amend the ordinance to basically explain like, okay, yeah, you should do best management practices versus do it this way.
I think, Mr. Donave, we might have some homework to do then. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Just to kind of tie into some of the questions that I had the architect with regards to traffic-induced vibrations. Now, you cited from the county data and extrapolated that the soil is more clayish. So most likely, is that a harder type of soil?
It's not clayish. It has more composition for clay, but it is mixed with sand, some silt, some gravel also. And again, that is based on the Union County soil data.
Yeah. How does traffic-induced vibrations, especially from, let's say, Route 22 truck traffic and vehicular traffic, how would those vibrations pass through such soil of that nature?
I don't think so that will have an impact for Route 22, because if you walk the site today, usually if there is an impact for vibration, you can see it on the surface of the land, that you might see some cracks, you might see some settlements here and there. The lot is like, I mean, it's basically whatever the slopes are. So I don't think so. It's one of those things that if the truck moves through Route 22, it will start vibrating and all the houses and everything will go down, trickle down. It's not the thing. The only way that the vibration can affect if you do a blasting in that area, like in the rocky area where people do land blasting to demolish or to take down the rocks formation. That's when you have the vibration issue. Otherwise, this highway is there for like, 70, 80, 90 years probably. And again, it's no different for this particular lot versus any lot on that route for any highway. You will see houses right next to the highway. Where I live, I have 287, which is probably about 200, 300 feet from my house. I don't see any, I hear the noise, but I don't hear any vibration.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, sorry to cut you off.
Yes.
But I do notice the time, and there are two other applications after us.
Yes.
And after his testimony, my plan is to ask so we can adjourn this to the next meeting, so our team can regroup. You can continue your questioning, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if we want to open after his testimony to the public, or I'm just trying to be time efficient here, sorry.
Actually, what my thoughts are based on what you said is that we would probably do questions from the public for the engineer, and to be fair to the public as well, we'll have comments from the board, comments from the public, so that at least you have some additional feedback that you can go back to. I don't know, as a result of that, if we're going to have sufficient time as a result for the two other applications for the night.
Yeah, we can take a break and at least have in the middle of it to release one application. Sorry.
Yes, please. Yeah, if you could approach the mic and just identify yourself and who you're representing.
Stephen H. Merman of the law firm of Javerbaum Wargap, Hicks, Kahn, Wickstrom, and Simmons on behalf of both applications. You're smiling, Michael, you know, because it's so hard for me to get all those names out. But I usually say I get paid extra if I do it right on the record because I can bring it home, and I know I did it. But in any event, our firm not only is working on this application before the board, but we also have the other two applications which I have been sitting in the wings for. So with regard to Chestnut 367, Mr. Chairman, that's the last matter. I've already discussed that with my client and our professionals. We would ask that that matter be carried to your July 24th meeting with no further notice. We would be ready to proceed on the July 24th meeting for that one. With regard to the 7-Eleven...
Before, we'll
I'd like
we'll
to
entertain the
motion
motion for that, so we can just get that out of the way.
To allow that, 367 to be moved to the next meeting with no notice.
Moved by Mrs. Perkins.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohan. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the other application, Mr. Chairman, even though it is late, we recognize that, I understand the proposition and how the board wants to proceed with this application. I'd like to have an opportunity, if I may, to address, after this application is complete, I believe that the 7-Eleven application is a rather quick application.
From my understanding as well.
We could probably knock it off relatively quickly. I only have basically a planner and the engineer, and I have no one here on behalf of 7-Eleven. So it would be a quick application. So if the board's okay, we're just going to stay and wait. We'll wait you out. If the board
Okay.
doesn't want to continue and do that, that's fine. Right this way, I just want to make sure I release this one of my sets.
Duly noted, and we'll see how far we get with the rest of the period. Maybe we'll be quicker, maybe not, who knows? But if we do have time, we will bring forth that application. Okay. Any further questions from the board? Questions from the public?
Eric O's, 1083 Mayfair Road, Union, New Jersey. Hey, how are you? Could you call up the site plan that shows all of the dimensions, the setbacks?
Sure.
Okay, no variances required for setbacks. It doesn't appear to be, correct?
That is correct. I can actually,
Okay.
let me go through. Yeah, the only variance we are seeking is the building height.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the only variance we are seeking is the building height. Everything else
Ah.
complies, the setback complies.
Okay, setbacks comply. Let's take a look at your grading plan, please. So, okay. Grading with topography, please. Okay. Okay, if you could go towards the vehicular circulation entry and exit, you zoom in a little bit. I happen to have been looking at the photographs, and it looks as the topography, there's actually 4 steps to get from the sidewalk to the existing grade. I don't see that there's any regrading in that area. Like, I think your proposed contour says 72 at the front, hold on. 72, and what is it at the roadway, at the sidewalk? Yeah, right here. What is it there?
It's 72 at the sidewalk, then it goes up to 74. But the reason we are doing is like this is 72, this is 72. So this will be a high point. We'll create like 72.5. So this will be regraded. It will be.
You're leveling the site over there?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, and it looks like there's 75 over there. I happen to look at the photographs and I see that there's steps.
Yeah, actually
like
you
4
will.
risers to get to grade level.
Yeah,
And
and
I
I
was
mean
wondering
that's the
whether-
whole idea. Like it's going
Okay.
to be regraded completely
okay.
within those.
Did-
Yeah.
Was there ever any consideration when regrading to maybe entertain either retaining walls or anything to make the topography flatter? If I may, could you just go behind the first building? Yeah, go to the other one, the other way. That other way, right? Correct. Okay, so look at all these contours that are very, very close to each other. They're, I would say, within 5 feet of each other, would you say?
Yeah.
Along the,
Yeah, about a foot drop or like every
So-
5 feet. Yeah.
So you've got a foot drop in 5 feet. Would you know what that slope is?
I would say 1:20, I believe.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go, 20%.
Yeah.
It appears that, number one, beside it being hard to mow, I mean, you're going to get a lot of storm runoff with that steep of slope. So entertaining retaining walls, would that not alleviate that? That's the question.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because again, there are a couple of things when we do, like there are drainage, like there are certain standards that we have to maintain. We cannot just change the direction of the existing runoff flow or runoff area. So you have to maintain certain aspect because otherwise what will happen if you put retaining wall, the water is still going to run off from this surface. If it's not coming to our house, it's going somewhere else, someone else's property, or maybe to the street. So it's going to start impacting the neighbors. So that's the reason that there are certain standards or principles that we have to follow when we do the grading.
I understand that. I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, and again, I'm seeing the slopes that I'm seeing, and it just appears that you've got a hill and then a flat portion, if there was any opportunity. Okay, can we look at this, the handicap space? Was there any rationale to having the handicap space cross the flow of traffic?
Across the,
Cross the flow of traffic. If I'm handicapped and I'm getting out of that car, I've
Yeah.
got to cross the flow of traffic just to get to this house.
yeah, but probably you might have heard, like, it's not one of those ShopRite kind of a traffic that we're talking
Oh,
about.
I know.
Yeah,
It's ShopRite,
so
but-
it's a residential 6 units.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah,
I
so
understand. It's
you're not
vol-
talking about a constant flow in and out of those
Okay,
spaces.
but handicap space is a requirement by zoning, right? Correct?
By the federal government.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Okay, so that is a requirement.
Yeah.
You're meeting the requirement.
correct.
But your location is crossing the flow of traffic. That is my only observation.
There are no
Not-
restrictions as far as where it can be. I mean,
But
except for it
feasibility.
has to be a shortest distance to the access. That's the only restriction.
Okay.
And this is very typical. Anywhere you go, it's an engineering standards, it's an RSIS, Residential Site Improvement Standards, which tells you, like, if you are providing a 90-degree parking, you just need to provide enough backup space.
Mhm.
onto
Yeah,
the
and I
things.
no, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I appreciate that. I'm just saying, not from a code standpoint, but just from a feasibility standpoint. Crossing the flow of traffic, if you happen to be in handicap, don't you think it would be a little bit more convenient? Like, for example, I mean, are there any sidewalks on site
No.
for a person from the handicap spot to
Yeah.
at least get onto a sidewalk?
Yeah, there
to
is.
traverse around.
Yeah, we have a fire lane, marked fire lane, so if a handicapped person is getting off in the space, they can come, they can travel the fire lane, and then we have a sidewalk.
Okay, so but that's still in the bed of the roadway. It's still part of the roadway. The fire lane, the strip that you have hatched, is that still part of the roadway?
That is correct. But
So the-
again, this is not where the cars will be, I mean, the fire truck is not coming every hour to,
Right,
yeah.
That's correct. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to you is that if I'm handicapped and I'm getting out and I'm getting into that handicap striping area, the only way for me to get into that house is to cross the roadway, correct?
How is it different than any other
I didn't-
situation?
I'm just asking you to
Yeah,
answer that.
that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of trees, thanks. We like trees, that's good. Could you go towards the front? Do you have any concerns about any of these trees impeding visibility of the traffic on Chestnut?
No.
Okay. I think that's it. Thanks.
Welcome.
Okay, any further questions from the public? All right, hearing none. Before we do entertain the motion to carry this, carry this to the next meeting in July?
Yes.
Yeah, without further public notice, I assume?
Yes.
I'm going to ask for a comment period from the board, and then a comment period from the public, just because they've been very patient to come here and be with us for the past 3 hours, to offer them the ability to provide any feedback as necessary. So, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, given the fact that this application is going to be continued forward to the next meeting at which I will not be present, I'd like to get my comments on the record despite the fact that I won't be able to vote on the application. There's been considerable testimony tonight that have addressed many of my concerns moving into this hearing, specifically the ownership question and the modification of the designs that have been offered to eliminate the concerns regarding the first floor. But I continue to be concerned about the height, the variance requested for the height requirement, and very specifically related to the proposal to establish the private road managed by a homeowners association. I just don't personally find that to be feasible. We have a very well-managed community. Our Department of Public Works, our township administration are very, very meticulous about maintaining the quality of life in the community and making sure that all of our streets are maintained, snow removal, all of those things. And while I don't doubt that it's the intent of the applicant to ensure that those standards are maintained based upon this application. I don't feel that we have sufficient assurances because we don't have the evidence before us about how road maintenance and repair will be financed. We don't know what the rules of the HOA are. I would not be satisfied if I were voting tonight on this application relative to that particular variance. That being said, I'm going to ultimately defer to my colleagues on the board because I will not be among them the night that the application is voted on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Further comments from the board?
Yes, I would like to make a comment as well, relative to almost a compilation of many of our concerns. Our engineer has brought up a very practical question. I believe I have brought up a very practical and open-minded thought relative to a handicapped individual accessing, buying, using, or visiting the particular apartments that will be owned by the second floor person, owner. I'm very sorry to see that. It's not something that exists in most of our buildings. I'm concerned that there's not a rear exit from these circumstances. I understand the testimony was very clear about the fact that the stairwell will be safe and with no sprinklers. I understand that too. But I have great concern about the practical nature of this design. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board? I would like to provide some comments as well. This application is very incomplete. To come forth, number one, as seen tonight, one of my concerns is with regards to traffic. To come forth with a traffic plan with no capacity analysis, with no traffic impact study, it seems very odd to me. It's a cart before the horse type of issue that you would propose a design but not to do the study beforehand to support the design. I would think it's very pragmatic to say, do your study first, produce the empirical evidence, and then come before this board in terms of how that supports the redesigning of an intersection. And it seems like it's very much inconsistent with the practices provided by NJDOT, the practices provided by the county that also leans on the DOT, and a myriad of other organizations like the Institute of Transportation Engineers. So to me, this seems very backwards, and I'm sure as well as other colleagues, are not simply going to take a leap of faith to approve an application based on faith that it's just not going to exacerbate conditions on an area that is deemed of concern not only by residents, not only by the town, but also by the county as well, as an area that is in concern of congestion, and that should be noted. And this board needs to uphold our goals when it comes to the master plan of encouraging a well-maintained, efficient, and safe circulation system, to improve the capacity and efficiency and safety of our intersections, and to ensure that that circulation is compatible with our land use goals and public safety. And so when we see and hear that the pedestrian is completely removed from the consideration of this intersection, that's a concern for me. Secondly, I'm sure that there are other concerns with regards to the architectural design. And thirdly, as I noted, we probably have some homework as a township to revisit how we calculate runoffs and advise applicants on doing runoffs. But I would feel more comfortable with the coefficients and the guidance provided by the state best manual practices, because they seem to be more stringent. And because we have a myriad of flooding zones scattered all throughout the township, I think it's better to be safe to overestimate the risk of runoff rather than lean on underestimating the risk of runoff. So I do feel that we need to revisit that, the calculations, and how that might change as well the proposed stormwater detention systems through the dry wells. So those are my three main areas of concern. Again, this feels very incomplete. I don't think the board can take a leap of faith of a design before a study, and those are my comments. So, any further comments from the board? Comments from the public?
Again, David Weisbrod, 990 Tin Kettle Turn in Scenic Union. I just want to echo, Mr. Chairman, your remarks, which were made far more eloquently than mine. To ignore the capacity, someone making a right turn out of the new development, wanting to cut across to make that left turn onto West Chestnut isn't going to work. The turns are backed up. The traffic is ridiculous. If a capacity study would eliminate that, I would be dubious of it, but traffic is a main concern, especially when school lets out. People coming from Globe trying to make a left onto Chestnut, as well as people coming from Chestnut trying to make a left onto Globe, creates a huge backup. And because Union has no regulations regarding 24-hour overnight parking, those particular side streets are clogged. Fire trucks have difficulty getting through from Pond Drive when they go down that way. So for us from the Fairway Drive section, which we will have greater attendance in July, know that it's just a logistical traffic nightmare. So thank you for your considerations.
Again, Nadej Ricketts, 692 Rosner Drive. Chairman and esteemed board members, I greatly appreciate you all looking into this application, asking the thorough questions. But we've heard testimony from several witnesses. And as Mr. Chairman said, it is incomplete. Specifically, the capacity, which is one of the most important factors regarding this project. Again, I live in the Fairway neighborhood, and one of my neighbors, as you have heard, traffic can be a complete nightmare, especially during peak hours. There are times where traffic is backed up from 22 East coming onto Fairway Drive just to get onto Chestnut. It is absolutely backed up. The light tends to be very short for us to turn. Everyone is in a rush, so guess what happens? They block that intersection. Once they block the intersection, guess what? We can't turn and we cannot when we have to wait, and we have places to go as well. Fairway Drive only has two ways to get in and out, either 22 or Chestnut. So therefore, it does significantly put a strain on the residents there to now add a fourth intersection, regardless of this is going to be something so short, the light, and whatever the case is, right? Another thing that was not taken into consideration, as Mr. Chairman pointed out, is the pedestrians. You're taking out the middle curb, which is there for a particular reason. It's there so that people don't make illegal U-turns or don't do anything else. However, there is no type of thought process taken into consideration. The pedestrians, we do have a lot of children that live in our area that do go to Connecticut Farms. And there are people that do cross that. I can't remember if there is a particular traffic light that says cross or don't cross, but I have seen people that have crossed there, children especially. They wait for the light and then they go. But no type of consideration was taken into account for them, which is completely unfair. To accommodate maybe 20 or so odd people, while hundreds of people that commute there, you're putting them at a disadvantage, which is completely unfair, completely unfair. The traffic experts has repeatedly said that this is such a small project, which would mean that other drivers would be permanently disrupted. Because there are times where, let's say, people in that particular development are not using the traffic light because they're not really coming in and out often, but what about the other people that constantly use Chestnut Street, Fairway Drive. Chairman had pointed out the various ways people get on 22. Fairway is one of them. What about us? What about us? People that have lived there for years. And again, thank you, Board Member Cohen, for expressing and explaining that the township does take pride in taking care of our roads, our streets, and everything else. So adding additional traffic to the place that's already extremely busy, to me, is unfathomable. For that reason, I do ask the board not to approve this, simply because, again, consideration was not taken specifically for the residents in the Fairway area, for the pedestrians, for the Connecticut Farm School as well. This application is incomplete. Many questions are unanswered. The capacity study was not even done. However, testimony is being given saying that this is going to be a short light. This is just a small thing. Testimony has been given for that. However, the actual data and proof has not been provided. So for that reason, I ask the board to strongly consider denying this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
Thank you, Chairman, and the board. I do have concern as a Union resident, not close to here, but passing by for vehicular circulation, as well as a number of things that I just felt uncomfortable with. It appears, and I think a lot of people have intimated that, and I'll use it in my own terms, the documents are half-cooked. No one has really vetted this here enough. And it's simple enough for certain of the licensed professionals to do some of the due diligence that's involved, to know the statements that they're making can be substantiated. You know, you run a test, you can do a res check. It's not that difficult. I mean, take some hours to do this, but just don't tell me that, yes, it's going to comply with energy code, but you can't tell me what this is going to be. The outside-inside air transmission, sound transmission rather, that was just mentioned about, oh yes, we're right near highways, but we're going to comply. Saying that you're going to comply is not enough. Do the due diligence and come with a presentation that is worthy of consideration versus a pipe dream that's just, again, half-cooked. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Hearing none.
Chairman, I would like to request an adjournment to the August 28th meeting, if possible.
Sure.
So we can, digest all the comments and regroup and decide what we're going to do next.
Okay. All right.
Without prior notice.
What?
Without additional notice.
Without additional notice, yes, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Cohan, seconded by Mrs. Perkins. Sorry, Mrs. Perkins, you had any comments?
I think it's a wise choice.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frayne?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to try to fit this in very quickly. So, Mr. Merman, can you please approach with application 2025-09, 711?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Stephen Merman, already identified with law firm I'm with, but I'd like to, no need to reiterate it further. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this matter has been before the board previously for a site plan waiver about a year and a half ago. The application is related specifically to the road widening project that was done on Morris Avenue. And this particular site, there is continuing an eminent domain action in Superior Court. In fact, we had a case management conference on it yesterday, which is why I asked to have the opportunity to try to quickly put in the application tonight, because we are under the gun with the court in order to finish the application, because part of the court case are damages related to the closure of the driveway and the effect that the actions of DOT had on the operation of the 7-Eleven. So with regard to tonight's application, we are here to tie up these loose ends so that we can finish because basically this is an amended site plan. This board had previously approved the site plan decades ago, right? In fact, I've been around town so long that I remember when that was a Jiffy Lube. Right? Okay.
I think a bunch of us were around for that time too, yes.
So we know it's Jiffy Lube, right? So we know that this site has had a lot of different variations over the years. So when it was originally approved, it was approved as it was, and there were variances that were associated with the plan. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to introduce Doug Cleveland of Insight Engineering. He's going to run very quickly through the site plan, concentrating on the changes, what has changed. We're also going to introduce tonight, very quickly, a turning template, because one of the issues that is before the Superior Court is whether or not this site can accommodate certain size trucks. And if the board makes a determination that it can't, that goes to the damage claim by 7-Eleven against the state. Because prior to them closing the driveway and taking, the site operated that would allow these trucks to go through with no issue. Then after Doug, we're going to go very quickly into Gabe Baylor, who's going to give the planning testimony to support the variances, both those that were existing and those that are newly created. I believe the only one that really is newly created may be parking. We've lost 2 parking spots. Without further ado, I call Mr. Cleveland.
Sir, can you spell your last name for the record, please?
Sure. Cleelland.
Can you raise your right hand?
Yes,
You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Could you give us a very brief rundown of your educational background and professional qualifications?
Sure. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. Currently work for Insight Engineering as an associate, where I've worked for the last 11 years, working on a variety of projects from single-family homes to larger commercial site plans. I've testified before about 35 other boards in the area. Have not had the pleasure of testifying before Union before. I also had the privilege of serving as the board engineer for the Planning and Zoning Boards of Asbury Park, and my license is in good standing.
Board stipulates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You worked on the original site plan, did you not?
Our office did, yes.
Confirmed it. Yeah, I
yes.
think you may not have been licensed at that time.
That is correct.
All right, but you have gone through the old files and you have a comparison
Yes.
of what the site plan is. So could you put your site plan up on the?
I have a thumb drive. I just don't know where. There it is. Look at that. Technology. Okay.
Steve left in a hurry, huh?
All right, so just to orient the board, the location's 1174 Morris Avenue, Block 504, Lot 18. It contains 18,736 square feet, or just under half an acre, 0.43 acres. It's zoned Affordable Housing District 2, AH2 zone. It's on the corner of Lehigh Avenue and Morris Avenue and surrounded by commercial use. Morris Avenue is a state highway 82. Lehigh is a local road. And as was stated, the applicant is requesting preliminary final site plan approval to address conditions created by the NJDOT's eminent domain taking for improvements along Morris Avenue. So as part of that taking, several changes have already occurred. One egress on Morris Avenue was closed, and we overlaid this over some aerial imagery so it's a little clearer for the board. Right about here is where the one of the egresses existed. We have a second plan down right here, and there's a third egress on Lehigh Avenue that exists. So the one egress on Morris was closed. A freestanding sign was relocated, which is located right here on this corner. One parking space was also lost. The overall lot area was reduced, which worsened an existing nonconformity. The property was already undersized relative to the zoning requirements. The closure of the Morris Avenue curb cut also affected truck circulation on the site. To address that, we've proposed some minor modifications, including widening the access on Lehigh Avenue, modifying some of the curb islands, and removing one additional parking space by increasing the loading zone striping. So on balance, there's a loss of 2 parking spaces. One was lost in this area. The first was lost as part of the DOT's work, and a third is lost here where we're increasing the loading zone striping, but one additional space was added here. So on balance, two net parking spaces are being lost.
While I have you right here, could you explain the reason why we did the striping and the loss of that parking space?
Yeah, it's all relative to truck circulation. So what used to happen is, I believe on Morris Avenue, there was 2 egresses, so a truck could pretty easily angle in through one egress and utilize the loading zone and then pull straight out back onto Morris. That's not feasible anymore. So the main entrance that we anticipate being used is going to be on Lehigh. So that was widened. As I mentioned, some of the curb radiuses were increased to allow for a smooth transition around this curve. And then this parking space here, we've increased the loading zone striping to prohibit anyone from parking there, which will make it easier for a truck to be able to make this turn and access the loading zone. And then they would, as they did previously, pull out onto Morris Avenue through that existing curb cut there.
Now, I know we have our outline. I'm going to jump off the outline for a minute. Could you throw
Yep.
up those truck
Yep.
templates that we prepared?
Mr. Merman, can we mark that as Exhibit A? And then,
So here we have, this is known as a multi-stop truck. WB50 is the design vehicle. This is the most common delivery truck to the site. And we show the movement here from Lehigh Avenue through the new modified entrance, making a turn, avoiding any parking spaces, and then entering the loading zone, ultimately leaving back out onto Morris Avenue.
That is not a box truck. That is a tractor trailer.
That is a tractor trailer. It's not the largest design vehicle that's out there. Obviously, that's the WB62. That's something you would see more, arriving at a warehouse with the full sleeper cab in the back. This is more of a multi-stop day vehicle. So we do have a turning analysis with the WB62 as well. It is possible. I don't anticipate that it'll be used very often, if at all, but we do have that turning template as well.
Does that other turning template, does it accommodate the movement as simply as the one that you're showing the board right now?
Close to it. It's there's a few spots where we did need to use mountable curb, particularly on this curb island, but it is able to navigate the site given the modifications.
So the proposal is to use the modified curbing to allow these trucks to access without damage to the trucks or to the property.
That is correct, yes.
Now, we had an opportunity, did we not, to review the effects of the changes with the operator with 7-Eleven? And
We did.
just run through those with the board?
Yes. So, they've spent a lot of time watching how things have worked since the DOT made their changes. That elimination of the one egress on Morris Avenue has greatly impacted them. It's created a situation where the trucks are having a difficult time entering. probably needing many, many movements to get into the loading zone. And then even sometimes when they're getting into the loading zone, they're not properly oriented and are causing a bit of a, poor circulation for the other vehicles on site. So we do feel that the modifications proposed will allow the truck to get in there and pull closer to the building to allow, cars entering from Morris to be able to circulate the site better. But yes, from what we've seen and what we've witnessed, photographs were shared with me. Basically they've told us that, it's not wide enough for two cars to enter or exit at the same time. And we believe this will make it much better.
Now, I just want to run through the variances with you that were created specifically by this DOT action.
Yes.
As well as the ones that have previously been approved. Let's start with minimum lot area. In the original approval, there was a 4.30 acres, 18,736 square feet. That was reduced by the taking?
Yes, so in the proposed condition, after the DOT taking, the resultant area is .426 acres or 18,543 square feet.
You already referred to one sign being moved. There were 3 signs that previously had been approved on this site, with the exception of the one sign that we already referred to and talked about with the site plan waiver application. Was there any change relative to that variance that was requested?
No change, no.
Minimum setbacks, was there any change as a result of this?
So the minimum setback for the sign, the requirement's 15 feet. It exists currently at 3.08 feet. We're not proposing any change. The sign was relocated as part of the taking, and that setback is a direct result of the taking. Minimum setback from the street for parking areas, the requirement is 10 feet. Existing is 8.9 feet to the new curb that was installed by the DOT. Again, another direct result of the taking. Minimum setback from property lines for parking areas, required is 10 feet. It exists currently at 2 feet. And that was, I believe, previously approved. And then as part of the proposed condition, with the space that we are adding, the proposed setback is 0.7 feet. Again, this parking stall was added in an effort to maintain as closely as possible the original number of approved spaces. And then number of parking spaces, as was discussed, the requirement was 20 spaces. Existing, after the DOT has done their work, 19 spaces exist, and we're proposing 18 spaces. Again, we're trying to maintain as closely as possible the original number of approved spaces, but because of the DOT's work and trying to maintain adequate access, especially for the truck traffic, 2 spaces did need to be eliminated. And then a couple more. We have the minimum aisle width, which is required at 24 feet. In the original approved application, it was 24 feet. After the DOT has done their work, 21.3 feet to the new curb that was installed by the DOT, and under the proposed condition, 18.8 feet, also driven by adding the parking stall on the corner of Morris and Lehigh in order to try to maintain an adequate amount of parking for the site. Parking space location is required to be in the rear side yard. It was originally approved under the original application in the front yard. We're not proposing to change that. Loading space size, loading space location, rear or side yard, but not abutting a street. It existed, and it was originally approved in the side yard abutting the street, and we're not proposed to change that. And then finally, minimum setback from the building for parking area requirement is 10 feet. Existing in the front, adjacent to the sidewalk, is 5.8 feet. And then in the rear, there's 3 employee parking spaces. that abut the building, so there's a zero setback behind the building for the existing employee spaces. Again, that was originally approved under the original site plan, and we're not proposed to change that.
As a result of the changes, was there any need to address the stormwater management on the property?
No, so we've graded the property and modified the curb in a way that all existing and previously approved drainage patterns will be maintained, and we're not proposing any additional stormwater management.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions on this one.
Questions from the board? Mr. Chairman.
What size tractor trailer, what size trailer are we talking about?
So the overall length is 55 feet for the WB50. So the trailer itself, from the center, so
It's a 45-foot trailer, is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about a 40-foot trailer?
it's 42.5 feet, the trailer itself. Yep.
Would the, I'm back here, sorry.
Yes.
The tractor trailers would enter on Lehigh Avenue? Would they also be able to enter from Morris Avenue, or it was
No,
just that
I-
one way they can come in?
Yeah, there's really no feasible way to get in from Morris Avenue, so that option's pretty much off the table.
And the egress that's on Morris Avenue, is that both an entrance and an exit for cars, or is it just an exit?
It is technically a two-way entrance. I have a feeling as people, that live in the area will probably get used to going in on Lehigh because of it's a little difficult to get in from Morris. I know when I visited, I went in on the Lehigh Avenue entrance. So people that are familiar with it will probably go to Lehigh, but you may get the rare scenario where someone may try to enter from Morris, and that's where our client has noticed the issues occurring.
And then the tractor trailer entering can only go one way on Morris Avenue when they exit? And
That-
they'd have to figure out, if they need to go the other way, they'd have to figure out.
That is correct, yep. They can only exit to the right when leaving the property.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mahan.
Yeah, I just have one question, and maybe it's just it's more of a comment, but we've previously approved an application for a child care center across Lehigh Avenue. I guess the question is, what kind of traffic volume needs ingress, egress off of Lehigh Avenue into this property? And I mean, that's an awful area. I live in that area. I know that the intersection. It's not a good place to get in and out of, even now. I mean, I understand the challenge that the applicant has based upon the action of the DOT, but do we think that any of the current traffic issues will be exacerbated as a result of these changes?
I think the first question that we really need to answer is how many deliveries come in during the course of a day? And I think we have that.
Yes, I do. Give me 1 second. So the number of deliveries per day varies, but varies between 1 and 4 deliveries a day.
Really?
Timing of the deliveries, 2 of them are overnight during very quiet hours. The rest are what are known as DSD deliveries during the day. The timing of those deliveries does vary significantly depending on availability. The types of trucks that are delivering, they vary in size from box trucks, SU-30, SU-40, the multi-stop trucks, which we talked about earlier tonight, and then also refrigerated trucks, which really was the same as a box.
Yeah, I guess I'm really more concerned about customer traffic. And then I believe you answered this to a previous question. Customers can also make egress directly onto Morris Avenue from that other curb cut? They can
Yes.
pass through the loading zone to?
Yes, they
Yes,
can.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Practical fashion, they don't turn right.
yes,
Unless there's a break in traffic, they'd be crossing the double yellow line coming to the left.
that is correct, yes. And there's also, it's double yellow, and I believe there's some traffic striping in between as well. And if anything, our client has noticed, a drop in traffic because of these. Maybe it's not as convenient as it was before. So no, I don't anticipate any traffic issues the other way around in terms of more. If anything, they've seen a decrease.
If there's a truck in the loading zone, would that block the Morris Avenue entrance/exit?
So currently, they've noticed some issues with that. The trucks are having a difficult time making that turn around the corner. So our proposal is to try to increase the ability of that truck to make a sharper turn and get closer to the building to allow, some space within that loading zone for a vehicle to be able to pass by.
So you're going to reconfigure a bit more so that it's wider for the truck, so that there's space? Is that what you're saying?
Right now, where we're proposing the striping here, this is currently a parking space. So for cars parked there, they've got a tough time making this turn around the corner. So we're eliminating that parking space by striping it with a crosshatch pattern to allow them to make that turn earlier and get closer to the building during loading operations to allow, it's certainly wide enough here to allow other cars to pass through. The difficulty is practicality, right? And then it is the driver gonna, get over there as far as possible, to allow that to happen. One thing I will say, the 3 parking stalls below here, in the original approval were designated as employee parking. So I would imagine a lot of the in and out is going to happen on Lehigh. But again, our goal here was to try to improve, a difficult situation for the applicant.
Do you have any information on how long? So I know you said there's 4 deliveries, 2 are overnight. The 2 that are during the day, is there any information on how long those deliveries typically take?
I think they're relatively quick, just based on experience, I probably, 10 to 20 minutes for them to unload. They come frequently, they're there pretty much daily, so, they're not unloading a whole lot, and it can usually be done pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Questions from the public? Would you like to call your next witness?
Gabriel Baylor.
Yeah. Right, she's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, I know Mr. Baylor's testified before this board on several applications. On behalf of my firm, I ask that he be stipulated as an expert.
So ordered.
Mr. Baylor,
can we
would
get
you
him
spell your
sworn in?
name for the record? For the record, can you just spell your last name?
Sure, it's Bailer.
And do you, can you raise your right hand?
Yes,
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Mr. Merman mentioned, and the applicant's engineer mentioned, that these are variances related to eminent domain taking of the improvements by DOT. I have a photo board just to give the board some context of the existing conditions. This picture right here, when the cursor's over, this is where that previous ingress and egress on Morris Avenue was that was closed off by the DOT. So that resulted in a loss of ingress and egress along Morris Avenue. This one right here is DOT expanded this green area and resulted in also the sign having to be removed. And then this area right here is where there's going to be new adjusted parking. Previously was approved for 6 parking spaces. Now it's going to be 4 parking spaces. In front right here, it's going to be adjusted parking spaces as well, because we're going to lose one of the spaces related to expanding for the delivery. So there's going to be 7 parking spaces here. And this parking is going to be the one additional parking spot, as mentioned, to provide as much opportunity for parking resulting from the loss of the parking related to the DOT improvements. And this is the existing ingress and egress along Morris Avenue. In terms of variance requirements, I'm sure the board is familiar, there's a C1 variance and a C2 variance. What is the C1 variance? The C1 variance is in cases of hardship such as exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property, or by reason of exceptional or unique topographic conditions, physical conditions, or an exceptional situation uniquely affecting a specific piece of property or the structures lawfully existing thereon. And then C2, for the record, is where the purposes of zonings would be advance and the benefits derived by the variances we outweigh any detriments. I don't use this often, but this is a classic example of a C1 variance. This is a result of the eminent domain from DOT, resulting in the variances that are required for one minimum lot area. Required is 1 acre. Existing, it was an existing non-conforming condition that was previously approved in 2012, but existing is 736 square feet. Proposed is 18,543 square feet, a reduction of 193 square feet due to the New Jersey DOT taking. Number of signs permitted is 1, existing is 3. This is a previous existing non-conforming condition that was approved. In terms of the freestanding sign, that was also an existing non-conforming condition that was approved. Minimum sign setback required is 15 feet. What is now is 3 feet and 3.08 feet, and that's a result from the eminent domain of the expansion of the green area. The minimum parking setback requires 10 feet. What is existing is 8.86 feet, and this is resulting from the taking of the new curb. No parking spaces in the front yard is the existing condition that was approved in 2012. Minimum parking setback from property line required is 10 feet, and what's proposed is 0.7 feet, and that is for that one new parking space in the corner to provide as much parking as possible. This is also a result of the minimum parking aisle width requires 24 feet. What's proposed is 18.8 feet, and that's a result of this parking space and the expansion of the no loading zone where you lose that one parking space in front of 7-Eleven. So the result of that is 18.8 feet. And then the last variance resulting from the eminent domain is the required number of parking spaces. What is required is 20 parking spaces. What was existing was 20. Now it's 19, and by removing the one additional parking spaces, it's going to be 18 parking spaces, so a variance is required. This is something that the applicant did not want to do. They did not want to lose parking spaces, but as a result of the reconfiguration, the DOT eminent domain, resulting in the loss of the parking space, and to provide the necessary churning radius, we're going to lose one additional parking space in front of 7-Eleven, the store itself. So that result in 18 parking spaces. This was result from the eminent domain, but in my opinion, I don't think there'll be any significant detriment from resulting of losing 2 additional parking spaces.
Now, with regard to your overall testimony, as you and the board are well aware, we have to show special reasons under the municipal land use law. Could you identify which of the purposes of zoning this application falls under?
I think this is a benefit just in terms of appropriate population densities, appropriate uses in the area. So I think this serves the purposes of the municipal land use law on that. And this all goes into purposes of the eminent domain. You know, this is a result of the eminent domain itself. This is something that the applicant did not want to happen, but it did. And we're here to go through the process of making the jurisdictional approvals necessary to continue with this.
Do you see any negative impact to the zone plan or zoning ordinance of the Township of Union, which you reviewed prior to the application?
No, and this is the AH2 zone, but when this was previously approved, this wasn't the AH2 zone. But, you know, this in terms of the uses for this property and the surrounding area. The commercial is appropriate for this surrounding area. It's been a commercial use for a long time. It's been 7-Eleven since 2012, so I see no impact to the intent of the zone plan or the master plan itself.
And as to other properties, do you see any negative impact to surrounding properties?
No.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I've concluded my questioning of this witness.
Okay, questions from the board? Questions from the public? All right, thank you very much for your
Thank you very much.
testimony.
Mr. Chairman, normally I would make a summation, but I'm just going to submit tonight.
All right, thank you. Comments from the board? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the application, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the application as presented, subject to all of the conditions and comments made in the engineering review letter.
Moved by Mr. Cohan, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Perkins. Roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser?
Yes.
Committeewoman Terrell?
Yes.
Ms. Khan? Chairman Lay.
Yes. With no further business, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Cohan, seconded. Seconded by Mrs. Khan. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, meeting adjourned.